A woman is thrown violently to the ground, landing with a heavy thud. Lady Sophia gasps in shock and calls out to Lord Alan in distress. Duke Alan looks down coldly and asks Lady Sophia where she went. He looms over the scene and declares that today is the day their foster daughter is being judged. The girl sits crumpled on the floor, battered, dirty, and bound in heavy chains. Sophia looks on in confusion as the first chapter begins. Alan calls Rebecca Bernard to the stand while Sophia wonders what on earth is going on. He reads the charges, accusing her of cruelty toward noble ladies and attempting to poison the prince out of resentment. The Duke declares that she abused her position as the prince's fiancée and is to be executed for treason. Shackled and desperate, Rebecca wonders why she is the one being executed. She screams in anguish that she only wanted the prince's love. The prince retorts that she tried to poison him out of jealousy just to get his attention. Rebecca thinks about how other women talked to her fiancé while he looked like he was having fun with them. She covers her face and sobs, lamenting that he never even smiled at her. Sophia watches the heartbreaking scene, covering her mouth in horror. An elderly noblewoman asks Duke Alan Bernard if he objects to this decision as her foster father. Sophia looks up at the Duke, waiting anxiously for his response. Rebecca flinches in her chains, awaiting his verdict. The Duke stands silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. With cold eyes, he states clearly that he has no objections. Rebecca stares blankly ahead, her hope completely shattered. She whispers a denial in disbelief as the reality sets in. The guards drag her away as the execution order for Rebecca Bernard is officially pronounced. Sophia stares in shock as they announce the execution will take place at a later date. Sophia wakes up in her bed with a sudden, terrified gasp. Panting heavily, she sits up and realizes the terrifying vision she just experienced. She clutches her chest and understands it was a prophetic dream. Images of the prince and a rival woman flash through her mind in a bright haze. The prince smiles warmly at someone else in her memory. 1 week earlier at the estate, the story rewinds to the beginning. Duke Alan leans back and thinks that women are a hassle, deciding he just wants someone to play the role of a wife. The ladies swoon as Duke Alan Bernard begins his search for a bride. Sophia enters the grand hall to present herself. She introduces herself to Lord Alan as a member of the debt-ridden house of Count Ingrid. Alan observes her quietly, resting his chin on his hand. He comments that she resembles Rebecca a little as she curtsies. Sophia is confused by the sudden mention of the name Rebecca. Alan looks her in the eye and abruptly decides to choose her. He orders his staff to send the other ladies home immediately. The rejected candidates complain that they only just exchanged greetings with him. Alan ignores them and tells Sophia he will introduce her to someone. He calls out for someone to come in as Sophia looks toward the door. A young girl enters and shyly introduces herself to Lady Sophia. The girl reveals that her name is Rebecca. Sophia marvels at the girl's doll-like beauty as Alan introduces her as his daughter. Sophia is shocked until he clarifies that by blood, she is actually his niece. He explains that his younger brother and sister-in-law died in an accident a year ago, so he took her in. The Duke stands by the window with Sophia and little Rebecca, setting the stage for the tragedy foretold. Sophia gasps in amazement as magical sparks fill the air around the quill. Duke Alan presents the contract terms, offering to write any amount to satisfy her family's greed. Sophia holds the quill in hesitation, but the Duke interjects with a sudden condition. He coldly commands her not to interfere with his work and forbids her from falling in love with him. His eyes bore into hers as he demands she fully play the role of a Duchess-worthy wife. Sophia stares back in shock, trying to process the strict conditions of this marriage contract. She finds his attitude unbelievably rude and difficult to understand for a nobleman. However, she realizes that accepting these terms means her family's crushing debt will finally vanish. A dark determination settles in her eyes as she considers the most important benefit of all. She envisions her cruel family and realizes she will finally be able to escape that wretched house. With a steady hand, she signs the document, sealing her fate. A bird made of light bursts forth from the paper, surprising Sophia with its brilliance. Alan declares the contract complete while young Rebecca watches with tear-filled eyes. Sophia wonders if possessing such magic would give her the confidence she currently lacks. She dismisses the thought, deciding it is pointless to envy power she does not have. The Duke formally introduces Sophia to his niece, marking the start of their new life. Sophia smiles warmly and thanks him for choosing her as she officially marries into the household. Days later, Sophia stands alone in her room, gazing down at the carpet. She reflects that it has been a peaceful week since she signed the contract. Her thoughts drift inevitably to the Duke's young niece, Lady Rebecca. A chill runs through her as she remembers the prophetic dream of the girl's future execution. Sophia clutches her arms, terrified by her secret gift of seeing death in prophetic dreams. She wonders if she should confess this power to Lord Alan, having kept it hidden even from her own family. The terrifying vision plays out in her mind, showing Rebecca condemned for poisoning the prince. The dream echoes with the condemnation of the girl's insolence. In her vision, the ultimate consequence rings out and the contract is declared nullified. Sophia clutches her head in panic, refusing to accept such a disastrous outcome. She stares out the window, terrified that the possibility of this future is far too high. Peeking through the curtains, she resolves to avoid the annulment of this marriage at all costs. The thought of returning to her abusive family home is absolutely unbearable to her. Memories of her father's cruel insults surface, reminding her of her worthlessness in his eyes. He used to sneer that having strong magic without charm was embarrassing and ordered her away. She recalls him sending her off as a bride candidate solely to secure a large dowry. Her sister's mocking laughter and her father's threat of disgrace echo in her painful memories. Sophia knows that a woman like her marrying a duke is a miracle she cannot afford to lose. She calculates that since the contract remained intact in her dream despite the trial, she will be safe if she stays uninvolved. With a cold resolve, she decides there is no need for a decorative stepmother to interfere. A sudden clinking sound at the window interrupts her dark thoughts. Sophia is startled to see little Rebecca peering in from the darkness outside with a flower in hand. The young girl stares silently through the glass, her expression unreadable. Sophia gasps in shock, recognizing Lady Rebecca hovering outside her window. She rushes to the glass, asking if the child is alone and why she is there. Panic sets in as Sophia realizes they are on the second floor and the girl must have climbed a tree. Rebecca offers a small, mysterious smile. The girl covers her mouth, looking both innocent and slightly mischievous. She gazes up at Sophia with large, glistening eyes, waiting for a reaction. Sophia unlatches the window swiftly to let the child in. With a gentle smile, she opens the window and invites Rebecca to come inside. Rebecca stares in wide-eyed shock and stammers Sophia's name. Sophia gasps, horrified as she realizes she just impulsively opened the window. She tries to excuse herself to close it, but Rebecca is already moving. Sophia shouts a warning that the path is dangerous. Rebecca slips from the tree branch and plummets downward. Sophia screams the girl's name in terror. She lunges out of the window to catch the falling child. With a whoosh, she intercepts Rebecca in midair. She marvels at the girl's climbing ability even as gravity takes hold. Both of them brace for impact as they fall together. They crash onto the floor, limbs tangled in a heap. Panting heavily, they sit amidst the disarray of the room. Sophia smiles gently and thanks Lady Rebecca, glad that she is safe. Rebecca bursts into tears, apologizing profusely for putting Sophia in danger. She throws herself to the floor, begging for forgiveness. Sophia is bewildered by the intense reaction, insisting it was just her own clumsiness. Suddenly, Rebecca lunges forward and embraces her. The child buries her face in Sophia's chest, clinging to her tightly. Rebecca whispers that she is all right and there is nothing to worry about. Sophia blinks in surprise as she suddenly remembers the object in the girl's hand. She looks down at the crushed camellia flower Rebecca had been holding. Rebecca offers the flower shyly as a token of thanks for saving her life. Sophia accepts it with a warm smile but reminds her to use the door next time. Rebecca gazes up at her, eyes wide with awe and emotion. Sophia's reflection shines clearly in the child's sparkling pupils. Rebecca stands up abruptly and prepares to leave. She beams a radiant smile and thanks Lady Sophia once more. With a cheerful farewell, she dashes off into the distance. Sophia holds the flower close, inhaling its scent. She whispers a quiet good day to the empty room. Sitting by the window, she wonders what on earth just came over her. She touches her chest, confused why she moved to save the girl despite her resolve to stay uninvolved. A knock sounds at the door as a maid asks if she is awake. The maid announces that she has brought the daily flowers from Lord Alan. Sophia admires the massive, beautiful bouquet. She notes that Lord Alan sends flowers every morning since they married. She wonders if these daily gifts are just cold reminders of their contract, dismissing any romantic intent. Her eyes catch something nestled among the petals. She pulls out a card addressed to "My Sweet" and is puzzled by the inclusion of a letter. Reading the childish scrawl that says, "Miss you always," she notes the handwriting is definitely not an adult's. A sudden realization strikes her like a bolt of lightning. She compares the mental image of Alan's elegant signature on the contract with this clumsy script. Guilt washes over her as she thinks about how she has been avoiding Rebecca to protect herself. She recalls the image of the girl peering longingly at the flowers through the window. The memory of the hug returns, and she realizes the child smelled exactly like this scented letter. A dark vision of the future Rebecca in chains flashes through her mind. She questions the cruelty of fate and asks why such a sweet child must face that end. With new determination, Sophia decides she wants to know more about Lady Rebecca. Sophia stares at the mirror and realizes the purity of the child's affection compared to her own transactional view of the marriage. Overcome with curiosity, she turns to the maid and asks to hear the truth about Lady Rebecca's past. The maid hesitates, claiming that a servant is not worthy to speak of such private family matters. Sophia suddenly grabs the maid's hands, desperate for answers. She begs the startled servant to please tell her everything. The maid looks into Sophia's earnest eyes and realizes she cannot refuse. She begins the tale, explaining that 10 years ago, Lord Alan's brother had a scandalous affair while engaged. The child born from that illicit relationship was Lady Rebecca. The former head of the family exiled the couple, forcing them to live in poverty in the commoners' district. A flashback reveals Rebecca's father looking disheveled and desperate as he calls her name. Her parents blamed her for their fall from grace, lamenting that they could have remained nobles if she hadn't been born. Her mother verbally abused her, screaming that she should have been a boy so she could have been a legal wife. The abuse turned physical as they told the child she shouldn't exist. The maid confirms that Rebecca's parents resented her existence until the very moment they died. When they died in an accident, Lord Alan immediately took custody of the young girl. He appeared before the filthy, neglected child and told her to come with him. Rebecca looked up at him in fear and confusion, unsure of what was happening. A carriage whisked her away to the imposing ducal estate. Alan looked down at the battered girl and declared that this was now her home. She was cleaned up and dressed in fine clothes, looking like a porcelain doll. Rebecca stared at the Duke in awe and intimidation. The household staff surrounded her, declaring she would receive an education befitting a member of the Duke's family. She studied alone late into the night under the watchful eyes of strict tutors. Lessons in posture and etiquette filled her days as she tried to meet expectations. At dinner, she tried to muster the courage to speak to the Duke across the long, empty table. Alan looked up with cold, dead eyes and asked her what she wanted. Rebecca froze, intimidated by his distant demeanor. She looked down and whispered that it was nothing, retreating back into her shell. Her small hands clenched the fabric of her dress in silent frustration. Then she saw Sophia smile and thank the Duke for choosing her, bringing a new light into the house. Rebecca looked up with hope, feeling that a new mother figure had finally arrived. She fondly remembers that Sophia smiled at her kindly during their very first meeting. An illustration in a book shows a happy family, fueling her longing for connection. Rebecca asked the maid to deliver a gift to Sophia since she wasn't allowed to interrupt her. She admitted sadly that she didn't think Sophia would be happy receiving a gift from her directly. With a blush, she asked if Sophia would be happy if the gift supposedly came from the Duke. She begged the maid to keep the secret and deliver beautiful flowers to Sophia every morning in Alan's name. The maid apologizes for the deception, but Sophia is too moved to be angry. Sophia realizes that even though she just met the girl, the tragedy is clear. She imagines Rebecca in chains and realizes the girl was condemned without ever knowing how to ask for love. Sophia weeps for the immeasurable sadness of wanting to be loved but not knowing how to seek it. Tears stream down her face as she marvels at the child's resilience. She is amazed that despite growing up in such a loveless environment, Rebecca can still love others. Sophia decides she wants to respond to that love, even if she lacks confidence in her role. She resolves to raise love between them as if they were a real family to shatter the prophecy. Determined, she vows to nurture Rebecca while continuing her contract marriage with Lord Alan. She asks the maid where Rebecca is and swears she will never let the execution dream come true. Rebecca sits alone by a large window, unaware that her fate is about to change. Sophia takes a deep breath, clutching her chest as she prepares to face the day. With a determined expression, she steels herself and declares that it is time to move. She steps forward, marking this moment as the first step toward a brighter future. She throws open the double doors, only to immediately collide with a tall figure standing right outside. Duke Alan turns around, looming over his startled wife with a stoic expression. He looks down at her and bluntly asks where she is going in such a rush. Sophia stammers a nervous good morning, flustered as he points out that it is already past noon. She tries to laugh it off, lying that she was just passing by on her way back to her room. Alan sees through the evasion and questions her destination, reminding her of her scheduled education. Sophia freezes, terrified that telling him about the prophetic dream would cause him to think she is crazy and cancel the contract. She decides on a partial truth and admits she was thinking of going to see Lady Rebecca. Alan's expression remains cold as he simply asks her why. Sophia explains that she wants to become close to the girl since she is now her stepmother. Alan dismisses the idea, reminding her that her role as a mother is strictly a formality on paper. Sophia clenches her fist at his side, frustrated by his transactional view of their lives. She realizes that if she accepts his logic and does nothing, the tragic execution she foresaw will become reality. With sudden intensity, she shouts that she truly wants to get along with Lady Rebecca. She steps closer to the Duke, insisting that her desire is not born out of mere duty. She looks him in the eye and declares she wants to connect with the girl simply as family. Alan stares at her in silence, his unreadable gaze making her heart pound. Sophia panics internally, fearing she has talked back too boldly and jeopardized her position. Alan touches his chin thoughtfully, murmuring the word family as if testing its weight. To her surprise, he shrugs and says he won't stop her since the contract doesn't explicitly forbid it. Sophia blinks up at him in stunned silence, hardly believing he agreed. Alan turns to leave, asking if she is really okay with that arrangement. He confirms he doesn't mind, and Sophia bows deeply, thanking him for his permission. She sighs in massive relief, trembling slightly now that the confrontation is over. Gathering her resolve, she turns and walks down the hallway with a lighter step. Behind her, footsteps pause as the Duke watches her retreat. Alan watches her go, surprised to realize he never expected her to speak her own opinion so firmly. He looks back with a hint of intrigue, seeing his contract wife in a new light. Sophia walks on, whispering the word family to herself with a complex expression. The scene shifts to the imposing detached building on the estate grounds where Rebecca studies. A high-pitched scream of distress echoes from inside the room. A severe governess stands over Rebecca with a pointer, yelling at her to do it once more. Rebecca trembles violently, standing terrified next to a vase of flowers. Tears stream down the child's face as she apologizes repeatedly for her mistake. A bonus story begins, reimagining the characters in a modern alternate universe. Sophia and her family move into a new house, wondering if they forgot anything during the move. They recall that a kind wife and an adorable girl live in the house next door. The neighbor opens the door to greet them, revealing Lord Alan dressed in modern casual clothes. Arriving at the villa for the first time, Sophia takes in the sight of the grand estate before her. Having heard that Lady Rebecca is currently in a lesson, Sophia plans to invite the girl to a family-style lunch afterward to bond. Seeking directions, she stops a passing maid to ask exactly where Lady Rebecca might be found at this hour. The maid informs her that Miss Rebecca is currently in the second-floor hall undergoing her dance lesson. Sophia notices the maid's hesitant expression and awkward silence, sensing that something might be amiss. Reaching the designated room, Sophia stands before the large double doors, believing this to be the place. Nervous about intruding without notice and potentially being turned away, she hesitates before the entrance. Suddenly, a harsh voice screams about how many times things must be repeated, drowning out a meek apology from inside. Sophia freezes at the door, confused because she expected a proper lesson, not this aggressive shouting. She cracks the door open to peek inside, witnessing a severe governess looming over Rebecca. As Rebecca drops her book in fear, the tutor coldly remarks that she has failed yet again. The governess screams, "What on earth are you doing?" at the weeping girl while other maids watch in silence. Shocked by the scene, Sophia wonders what kind of education involves this level of hostility. Realizing Rebecca has likely endured this abuse since her arrival, Sophia concludes that yelling is not teaching and no student can grow from it. The stern governess glares down with an expression of absolute disdain and cold authority. The woman lets out a scoff of irritation, clearly annoyed by her student's presence. A cruel smirk plays on the tutor's lips, suggesting she might be enjoying the power trip. Watching the woman's face, Sophia suspects that the tutor is tormenting Rebecca on purpose rather than genuinely trying to teach. Unable to watch any longer, Sophia bursts into the room with a loud, "Excuse me," startling everyone inside. Rebecca looks up from the floor in disbelief, murmuring Sophia's name as her savior appears. The maids bow hurriedly while Rebecca remains frozen in shock at the sudden intrusion. The tutor turns around and questions what brings Lady Sophia to the lesson hall in such high spirits. Studying the woman's face, Sophia recognizes the governess as Countess Narble. Memories surface of this woman behaving shamefully toward those of lower rank at a past social gathering. Noting that Narble refuses to bow and looks down on them, Sophia realizes the woman is treating them with the same disrespect she showed back then. It becomes clear that the Countess is mocking them, likely believing she understands their lower birth status despite their current titles. Sophia deduces that this toxic governess is the primary influence that warps Rebecca into the failure scene in the prophetic dream. By denying proper education and verbally abusing her, the tutor is systematically destroying the girl's confidence. Deciding she cannot overlook this, Sophia confronts Countess Narble and calls out her unacceptable attitude. Narble snaps back indignantly, asking if that tone is appropriate toward her, seemingly forgetting Sophia is the Duchess. Sophia steels herself, reasoning that asserting her authority as Duchess to protect a child is not a breach of her contract. Thinking that she must be able to at least discipline a tutor, she steps forward with determination. With a sharp smile, she informs the Countess that as Rebecca's educator, she is expected to behave with appropriate decorum. Intimidated, Narble stammers an apology to Duchess Sophia and promises to be more careful in the future. Despite the verbal apology, the woman's expression remains sullen and unconvinced. Sophia observes that Narble still refuses to look Rebecca in the eye, behavior that would normally warrant immediate termination in a duke's household. Turning her back on the tutor, Sophia apologizes to Rebecca for exposing her to such an undignified scene. She greets the girl properly with a polite, "Good day," noting it hasn't been long since they last met. Sophia compliments Rebecca's curtsy warmly, trying to restore the girl's shaken confidence. Rebecca manages to compose herself enough to return the greeting to Lady Sophia. Looking up with teary eyes, the girl asks hesitantly if Sophia wanted to speak with her. Sophia beams at her with genuine kindness, creating a stark contrast to the harsh tutor. She reveals the true purpose of her visit, simply stating that she came to invite Rebecca to lunch. Rebecca's eyes widen in sheer surprise at the unexpected kindness. Seeing the reaction, Sophia asks if the invitation made her happy, hoping to have cheered her up. Rebecca looks away, murmuring the word, "lunch," as if processing a foreign concept. Sophia watches the girl's internal conflict, wondering why she seems so hesitant. Rebecca glances back nervously and stammers that she appreciates it but seems afraid to accept. Rebecca hesitates to accept the invitation, casting a fearful glance toward Countess Narble, who interrupts the moment with a sharp, "Pardon me." The governess coldly informs Sophia that Miss Rebecca is currently skipping lunch as part of her regimen. Sophia freezes in shock, letting out a confused, "Huh?" as she tries to process the absurdity of the statement. Regaining her composure, Sophia demands to know the meaning of this ridiculous rule immediately. Narble replies arrogantly that she has been entrusted with managing Miss Rebecca's meals entirely. Noting the woman's swelling pride, Sophia asks if Lord Alan personally assigned her this specific role. Desperate for a logical explanation, Sophia wonders if there is perhaps some important medical reason for the girl to skip meals. Narble shatters that hope by smugly declaring it is to maintain her figure and build up her endurance. Sophia stares blankly, her mind reeling from the sheer stupidity of the justification. She realizes this is the second time she has heard such nonsense, and the governess looks visibly proud of her cruelty. Internally, Sophia rages that starving a growing 10-year-old is obviously abuse that will stunt her development. She questions the logic of building endurance through starvation, finding the concept utterly laughable. Furious, she concludes that this abuse produces only the helplessness of resignation, not strength, and decides she cannot remain silent. Sophia snaps at the governess, declaring that this is bad for Rebecca's health and ordering her to stop making the girl skip lunch right now. Countess Narble retorts defiantly, claiming that even Duchess Sophia has no right to interfere with her methods. The tutor laughs off the criticism, insisting that because the Duke's family entrusted her with the education, her policy cannot possibly be wrong. Sophia counters sharply, asking if Narble seriously believes her personal opinions represent the will of the entire Duke's household. Internally, Sophia hesitates, worrying that speaking too carelessly might lead to a breach of her contract marriage. Looking at the trembling Rebecca, she realizes that unless this tutor is corrected, the child will just keep getting hurt. Facing a tutor drunk on authority who refuses to listen to reason, Sophia wonders desperately how she can save Rebecca. Narble offers a condescending smile, clearly believing she has won the argument and holds the superior position. The governess dismissively asks if they are finished talking and orders Rebecca to continue the lesson immediately. Panicked that she is losing the chance to intervene, Sophia calls out a desperate, "Wait," to stop them. Sophia is torn between her desire to help the girl and the fear that staying bound by the contract prevents her from protecting her. She recalls the terms of the contract: to play the part of a duchess worthy of the house, without interfering in his work or needing to love him. Her focus narrows on the specific instruction to truly play the role of a duchess. She wonders if the Duke intended for her to be conscious of her role as a family member, implying she should act with the authority that title carries. A realization strikes her, and she looks up with a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. She questions why she overlooked Narble's arrogance, noting that treating a ducal family member this way would normally result in immediate termination. Even if her title is just on paper, she acknowledges that she is the Duchess and should have acted sooner. Reaffirming her identity as Sophia Bernard, she steels her resolve to take charge of the situation. She realizes she possesses the authority to banish a tutor who disrespects the family and refuses to correct her methods. The fear remains that dismissing the woman might lead to the annulment of her marriage with Lord Allen. However, she considers that there might be nuance to the situation that she hasn't fully explored. She recalls that Lord Allen never explicitly wrote anything forbidding her from getting close to Lady Rebecca. Trusting her instincts, she concludes that his words were not those of someone who wanted his daughter mistreated. With a fierce expression, Sophia decides she will take the risk to protect the child, consequences be damned. Meanwhile, Narble physically grabs Rebecca's arm, forcefully declaring that they will continue the lesson now. Sophia physically intervenes, grabbing their hands to stop the abuse in motion. Glaring intensely at the governess, Sophia commands her to let go of Rebecca's hand immediately. Narble recoils with a shocked "Ha!" completely taken aback by Sophia's physical interference. The governess complains indignantly, stating she would appreciate it if Sophia stopped interfering with her teaching. The tension in the room spikes as the two women lock eyes in a silent battle of wills. Sophia stands her ground, refusing to back down despite the governess's protests. Cutting off the woman's complaint, Sophia retorts coldly, "That's my line," flipping the accusation back onto the tutor. She reprimands Narble for showing repeated disrespect toward her as the Duchess, not just in education but in general conduct. Sophia declares that she sees no sign of Narble intending to correct these unacceptable behaviors, signaling the end of her patience. As the governess stammers, Sophia tells herself to stay calm as she prepares to deliver her final judgment. Rebecca stares in wide-eyed shock, her gaze fixed on the unfolding confrontation while trembling with fear. Sophia steels herself internally, commanding her own voice not to tremble as she prepares to speak. Clutching the fabric of her dress to ground herself, she gathers every ounce of courage she possesses. Facing the governess, Sophia declares that she can no longer overlook the woman's continued disrespect toward Lady Rebecca and herself. Asserting her full authority as the Duchess and Rebecca's stepmother, she formally dismisses Countess Narble from her position as tutor. Narble gasps in pure disbelief, her face contorting with shock at being fired. Rebecca looks up at her stepmother with a mixture of awe and disbelief, whispering Sophia's name. Maintaining her composure, Sophia thanks the woman for her service thus far but firmly orders her to take her leave as they will find a replacement. The Countess grits her teeth, sweat beading on her face as the humiliation of the moment sinks in. Desperate to salvage her position, Narble begs Sophia to reconsider what she calls a reckless decision. Sophia refuses, stating plainly that she cannot entrust Rebecca to someone who behaves in such a high-handed manner. With absolute finality, Sophia orders the stunned woman to please leave the premises immediately. Rebecca watches in silence, clutching her book to her chest as the reality of her liberation sets in. The maids standing in the background look at each other, their expressions shifting from tension to visible relief and joy. Defeated, Countess Narble stammers a stiff excuse and retreats through the door in shame. The door clicks shut, sealing the departure of the abusive tutor. The moment the door closes, Sophia's composure crumbles, and she internally screams that she thought her guts were going to explode from the stress. Panic sets in as she wonders if firing the tutor will cause the contract marriage to be cancelled, praying she will be fine. Rebecca looks up at her shaking stepmother, her eyes wide with concern and admiration. Suddenly, the maids erupt into excitement, surrounding Sophia to tell her how amazing and cool she was. Sophia flinches in surprise, caught off guard by the staff's sudden outburst of approval. The maids thank Lady Sophia profusely for her action before apologizing for startling her with their enthusiasm. They continue to gush over the incident, overjoyed that someone finally stood up for the young mistress. As the maids chatter, Sophia turns her attention to the silent girl beside her, softly calling out to Lady Rebecca. Rebecca clasps her hands together nervously and asks if Sophia is truly sure that what she did was okay. The girl looks up with shimmering eyes, fear and hope battling in her expression. She hesitantly asks if it is really all right for her to eat lunch even though her dance lesson technically isn't over yet. Tears well up in Rebecca's eyes, revealing just how deeply the strict rules had affected her. Sophia looks down at the child, her heart breaking at the innocent question. Smiling gently, Sophia reassures her with a warm yes and invites her to eat together. She reaches out and takes Rebecca's hand, solidifying the promise of a meal and companionship. The two walk hand in hand toward the dining room, leaving the trauma of the lesson hall behind. Walking through the corridors, silence hangs comfortably between them as they head to lunch. Entering the dining hall, Sophia marvels that even the separate residence's dining room is incredibly large, as expected of a duke's household. A maid directs Sophia to her seat, but Sophia pauses before sitting down. She agrees to the meal but apologetically asks the maid to move her setting to a different spot. The maid complies, shifting the silverware to the seat immediately adjacent to the other. Rebecca watches the arrangement with confusion, questioning why Sophia is changing the seating. Sophia sits down right next to Rebecca, prompting the girl to ask if it isn't proper to sit across from each other in such a situation. Sophia admits that is technically true, but insists that today she would simply like to sit next to Lady Rebecca. Rebecca blinks in surprise, asking, "Why?" with genuine bewilderment. Sophia takes a breath, coaching herself internally to say the words properly. Turning to the girl, Sophia smiles and states that they are sitting together because they are family. The word, family, strikes Rebecca, leaving her speechless and wide-eyed. A memory flashes through Sophia's mind of a man, likely the Duke, reacting with shock to the word family. The memory continues with the man looking cold and distant, muttering the word as if it were foreign. He scoffs in the recollection, asking, "You call that family?" with cynicism. Dispelling the doubt, Sophia affirms, "Yes," to Rebecca, declaring that she has become family with her. Sophia turns to the hesitant girl and gently asks if she would allow her to sit by her side. Rebecca gasps softly, looking completely surprised by the unexpected request. Sophia watches the girl's reaction with a tender, observant expression. Suddenly, a loud growl erupts from Rebecca's stomach, causing the girl to panic and apologize profusely for the impropriety. Sophia tries to interrupt the frantic apology, but the child trembles in fear, terrified of being scolded. Sophia realizes with horror that the girl is terrified over such a small thing, recalling her similar fear on the terrace. She questions what kind of twisted education would make a 10-year-old girl turn pale with fear just because she is hungry. Reaching out gently, Sophia places a comforting hand on the girl's shoulder to calm her. Rebecca flinches slightly at the contact before looking up with wide, teary eyes. Sophia smiles warmly and assures her that no one is mad, confirming she is not angry at all. She beams at the child with a bright, playful smile to dispel the lingering tension. Sophia laughs softly, admitting that the sound of the stomach growl was so adorable she couldn't help but smile. The maids in the background cover their mouths to hide their giggles, relieved by the lighter atmosphere. Sophia reaches out to fix the girl's ribbon, causing Rebecca to let out a small squeak of surprise. Relaxing under the kindness, Rebecca finally lets out a shy, genuine giggle. Observing the relieved staff, Sophia realizes they were all afraid of the governess and is glad they seem to be good people. Watching Rebecca eat, Sophia reflects that the more love a child receives, the better they will grow. She vows that even if her contract marriage ends, she hopes many others will continue to pour love into this child's life. Sophia asks if the meal was good, and Rebecca beams, declaring it was really delicious. As the meal concludes, Sophia asks what plans were scheduled for the rest of the day. Rebecca's expression dims slightly as she dutifully replies that she has academic studies next. Hearing this, Sophia tilts her head with a mischievous smile, clearly forming a new plan. Rebecca quickly apologizes for sounding unenthusiastic, but Sophia gently tells her there is no need for apologies. Sophia suggests they skip studies to take a nap since the strict tutor is gone, confusing the girl with the proposal. She points out that the girl looks sleepy, though Rebecca tries to deny it politely. Sophia gently presses the issue, noting that Rebecca's complexion is pale and she doesn't look well. Tears welling in her eyes, Rebecca finally admits that she is indeed tired. She confesses she was studying late into the night yesterday, shocking Sophia with the extent of her workload. The girl blames herself, crying that she stays up late because she can never achieve perfect scores on her tests. Unable to listen to any more self-blame, Sophia pulls the child into a tight embrace. Sophia affirms she is not a bad person, internally seething with rage at the tutor for causing this drama. She resolves that while she isn't angry at Rebecca, she absolutely cannot allow the girl to be pushed any further. Turning to a maid, Sophia asks to be led to Lady Rebecca's room immediately. In the hallway, Sophia offers to let Rebecca lean on her, but the girl hesitates, insisting she can walk on her own. Sophia explains that leaning on others when tired is important, causing Rebecca to look up and ask if that is really allowed. Confirming it is okay, Sophia asks Rebecca to wrap her arms around her neck so she doesn't slip. Rebecca gazes at her stepmother's kind face before smiling shyly and accepting the help. Sophia lifts the light child into her arms, carrying her through the hallway. Rebecca apologizes for being heavy but murmurs softly that the embrace feels incredibly warm. Her eyes widen as she experiences a physical comfort she has likely been denied for a long time. Carrying the girl, Sophia reflects that while she doesn't fully understand what a real family is, she remembers what her past self always yearned for. She acknowledges that despite her uncertainties about the contract marriage, the warmth she feels right now is undeniable. Rebecca smiles brightly, whispering that she feels really warm too. A silent plea echoes in Sophia's heart as she looks at the child's trusting eyes. She hugs the girl tighter, hoping that this feeling is something close to what a real family shares. The maid quietly closes the door, leaving the two of them alone in the bedroom. Sitting on the bed, Rebecca asks anxiously if Sophia is absolutely sure she doesn't have to study this afternoon. Sophia asks if skipping study makes her feel like she is doing something bad, and the girl nods meekly. Sophia asks if Rebecca enjoyed the lunch, and while the girl politely agrees, she hesitates visibly when asked if she actually likes her lessons. Observing the girl's silence, Sophia realizes that Rebecca likely doesn't even know how to express her own preferences. She gently assures the child that it is perfectly okay to value her own feelings and opinions above expectations. Rebecca looks up with a confused, blank expression, as if the concept of prioritizing herself is completely foreign to her. Noting that sad, uncertain look, Sophia offers her help and asks if there is anything specific Rebecca wants someone to do for her. Rebecca clutches the fabric of her dress over her heart, struggling to articulate the emotions she has kept buried for so long. A traumatic memory of the strict governess screaming in her face flashes through her mind, highlighting the fear she lives with. In a heartbreaking attempt to mask her distress, Rebecca forces her cheeks into a strained, unnatural smile. Unable to watch the child suffer any longer, Sophia pulls Rebecca into a tight, protective embrace. Sophia looks down at the girl with eyes full of sorrow, recognizing the deep emotional scars she carries. A mental image of a crude child's drawing appears, depicting a happy family of 3 holding hands. Buried in the warmth of the hug, Rebecca finally finds her voice and murmurs a hesitant start to her request. She stammers out the words, "May I?" her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Gathering all her courage, she asks if she might be allowed to ask for just one thing. Suddenly, the scene shifts abruptly to a man declaring that everything is fully prepared for their outing. A modern-day version of Alan stands casually with a swim ring, looking completely different from his usual ducal self. A narration box describes this alternate reality where the loving husband and his family of 3 live happily together. The dream sequence shows the trio laughing and heading to a beach cottage for a sunset dinner, looking like a perfect modern family. Sophia snaps back to reality with a start, feeling confused and wondering if she just had a really weird dream. Sitting on the bed, Rebecca timidly asks if she can ask just one thing. Sophia leans in with curiosity, wondering what Lady Rebecca's first ever request might be. With tears welling in her eyes, the girl shyly asks if Sophia could please hug her again. Sophia is struck dumb by the sheer innocence of the request, her mind racing. Overcome with affection, Sophia immediately shouts, "Of course I will," and pulls the child into an embrace, thinking she is too cute. She realizes she might be squeezing too hard and hurriedly checks if Rebecca is okay and can breathe. Rebecca assures her she is fine and whispers that she feels safe in Sophia's arms. Lying down beside her stepmother, Rebecca murmurs that she feels so safe she might fall asleep. Watching the child drift off, Sophia thinks that even her breathing is adorable and whispers, "Good night." Rebecca murmurs that if they sleep together, she might have a wonderful dream, prompting Sophia to decide to rest as well. The two drift into a peaceful slumber side by side in the large bed. Time passes quietly in the room as the sun shifts across the sky. Sophia stirs from her sleep, slowly blinking her eyes open as she wakes up. Realizing she slept until noon, she notes with surprise that she isn't sleepy at all anymore. She turns her gaze to the sleeping child beside her, studying her peaceful face. Looking at the innocent girl, Sophia finds it impossible to believe the prophecy that she would bully noble girls or poison a prince. With a fierce determination burning in her eyes, Sophia vows that she will definitely change Rebecca's tragic future. Night falls over the estate, casting shadows across the grand architecture of the ducal mansion. Sophia apologizes to the maids for sleeping in so late, but they reassure her it is perfectly fine. The rest seems to have done her good, as she smiles brightly with a refreshed expression. Sophia gently fixes Rebecca's bedhead while asking if she slept well, to which the girl replies she did. Noticing Rebecca isn't very hungry, Sophia suggests they go have a light dinner together. A maid suddenly interrupts, urgently reminding Madam to get her attention. The maid informs her that it is time for her scheduled dinner with the Duke. Sophia freezes, admitting she completely forgot about that obligation. She recalls the awkward silence of meals with her contract husband but acknowledges she does dine with him sometimes. Turning to the maid, she confirms that her dinner has already been prepared at the main residence. Sophia sighs internally, thinking she would honestly rather spend more time bonding with Lady Rebecca. However, she worries that refusing the dinner might break the terms of her contract marriage. A brilliant idea strikes her, and she looks up with a sudden realization. She turns to the girl and invites Lady Rebecca to come eat at the main mansion with them. Rebecca looks shocked and asks hesitantly if it is really okay for her to eat with the Duke. Sophia notes inwardly that calling her stepfather the Duke is a rather formal and distant way to address him. When asked if she ever eats with Lord Alan, Rebecca reveals they only have dinner together once a month. She explains that during those rare meals, they only talk about her studies and lesson progress. Sophia realizes sadly that the two of them have absolutely no personal conversation during their time together. It becomes clear that despite living together for a year, the father and daughter haven't gotten close at all. Concerned, Sophia asks if Rebecca dislikes eating with Lord Alan, but the girl quickly denies it. Rebecca surprises Sophia by stating firmly that Lord Alan is a very kind person. Clasping her hands, the girl explains with a smile that he is kind because he brought her into this home. Sophia watches the girl's expression, struck by the genuine gratitude in her voice as she repeats that he is kind. She realizes that for Rebecca, that single act of taking her in is something incredibly precious. Sophia ponders why Alan went out of his way to adopt the child of his exiled brother. Rebecca admits she wants to get along better with Lord Alan too but stops mid-sentence. She confesses that talking one-on-one makes her nervous due to his intimidating aura, and Sophia empathizes completely. Hesitating, Rebecca fidgets and suggests that perhaps they shouldn't go today after all. Sophia looks at her silently, waiting for the girl to find her courage. Clutching Sophia's hand, Rebecca decides she will be okay as long as Lady Sophia is by her side. Surprised by the request, Sophia blushes and thinks the child is too cute before happily agreeing, saying she's glad too. The two head to the main residence together, hand in hand, with a newfound sense of closeness. The grand ducal mansion looms against the night sky, its windows glowing with warm light. Inside the dining hall, Duke Alan is already eating his meal, his eyes closed as he savors a bite. Sophia and Rebecca burst into the room, with Sophia apologizing breathlessly for being late. Alan assures them it's fine but apologizes for having started without them. Sophia notes internally that he hasn't actually stopped eating even while apologizing, finding it slightly amusing. She observes his stoic demeanor, thinking that even when eating exquisite food, his expression never changes. Alan's sharp gaze shifts toward Rebecca, his eyes narrowing slightly as he notices her presence. Rebecca flinches under his stare but manages a polite greeting, though Sophia wonders why he looks so surprised. Sophia explains that she invited Rebecca because she wanted them all to have dinner together at the main residence. Alan stares at Sophia for a moment, processing the unexpected change in routine. His silence makes Sophia nervous, causing her to sweat and wonder if she overstepped. However, Alan simply states he doesn't mind, though he warns that Rebecca's meal might be delayed. Relieved, Sophia whispers to Rebecca that it's totally fine, and the girl nods happily. The three sit at the long dining table, the silence stretching awkwardly between them as Alan continues to eat. The silence persists, heavy and uncomfortable, highlighting the lack of natural conversation. Alan pauses, noticing that neither Sophia nor Rebecca has started eating yet. He asks what's wrong and why they aren't eating, clearly oblivious to the social cues. Sophia explains with a bright smile that she is waiting for Lady Rebecca's food to arrive so they can eat together. Realizing his mistake, Alan abruptly tells Rebecca to go ahead and eat first, startling the poor girl. Sophia clarifies again that she is waiting intentionally because she wants to share the meal with her. Understanding finally dawns on him, and he orders the staff to bring Rebecca's food quickly, dish by dish. Rebecca thanks him profusely, her hands trembling slightly with gratitude. Alan brushes off the thanks, muttering that such a small thing isn't worth thanking him for. Watching the interaction, Sophia thinks that Rebecca seems to be gradually getting used to her life as a princess in this house. She notes that while Alan's tone hasn't changed, he feels a bit more relaxed today than usual. Deciding to seize the moment, Sophia steels herself to deliver the news about the tutor before rumors reach him. Just as she starts to speak, the maid arrives with the appetizer, interrupting the moment. Alan cuts in first, stating he has a report to make, his expression serious. He puts down his cutlery, the sound echoing slightly in the quiet room. Sophia swallows nervously, asking what the report is about. Alan announces plainly that Lady Narble, Rebecca's tutor, has been dismissed. The statement hangs in the air, blunt and final. Sophia stares at him in shock, asking, why? Even though she knows exactly why. Alan remains silent for a beat, his expression unreadable. He explains that it was because she was too strict in Lady Rebecca's education. He reasons that since Rebecca started late at age 9, it was natural her education would be stricter than others. However, he acknowledges that there is a limit, and excessive pressure only stifles potential. Sophia listens intently, realizing that he had been paying attention to Rebecca's situation all along. Alan turns to Rebecca and asks what she thinks about it, giving her a voice in the matter. Rebecca freezes, clearly terrified to speak her mind against the decision or the tutor. Alan presses further, noting that she always said the Countess was a nice person in her monthly reports. He asks directly if she is saying that those reports were a lie, his tone unintentionally intimidating. Rebecca trembles, unable to answer as fear grips her. Her small body shakes visibly, the trauma of the interrogation triggering her anxiety. Sophia watches Alan's expression darken with confusion, realizing he doesn't understand why the child is terrified. Rebecca clutches her arm, paralyzed by the fear that she has upset the Duke. Sophia urges the trembling girl to be honest, telling her to just say how she really feels. She reassures Lady Rebecca to calm down, encouraging her to speak her truth. Rebecca clenches her hands tightly in her lap, her knuckles white with tension as she struggles to find the words. She looks down with a pained expression, her eyes reflecting the internal conflict she is battling. Finally, Rebecca blurts out, "I'm sorry," and confesses to the Duke that she lied. With tears in her eyes, she reveals that when she made mistakes, the tutor would hit her and it hurt, admitting that Lady Narble was really scary. Sophia gasps in horror, whispering, "No way," as the shocking revelation of physical abuse comes to light. Alan remains silent for a moment before asking gravely why she didn't say anything sooner. Rebecca explains heartbreakingly that she thought she would be abandoned if she complained. She believed such harsh education was normal for a ducal household and feared being scolded if she said it was painful. Apologizing again for lying, Rebecca lowers her head in shame while Alan listens with a somber expression. Alan simply says, "I see," his voice quiet as he processes the information. Rebecca then turns to Sophia, confessing that there is something she has kept from her as well. She admits that she actually knew about Lady Narble's abusive way of educating all along. This confession hits Sophia hard, leaving her speechless with shock. Rebecca explains she knew because the servants told her, but she still didn't dismiss the Countess. Sophia asks in disbelief why that is, questioning the Duke's inaction directly. She realizes with horror that Lord Alan knew about the abuse and left it alone for a whole year. Alan defends himself, stating he didn't act because Lady Rebecca didn't say anything. He claims that since she endured the education without complaint, he didn't dismiss the tutor. Sophia stares at him, appalled by his logic, asking if he is saying he overlooked the abuse simply because the child didn't complain. Disgusted, she lets out a sharp "huh?" of disbelief at his callous reasoning. Alan counters that Lady Rebecca is a duke's daughter, implying she should be tough. Sophia challenges him, asking if he is seriously suggesting she should endure that kind of abusive education. Alan insists she shouldn't have endured it but rather should have dismissed the tutor herself. He argues that between a duke's daughter and a countess, the duke's daughter ranks higher regardless of age. He explains that if the education was problematic, she had the power to bring down the Narble family entirely. Sophia looks at him with a mix of frustration and pity, realizing he is judging a child by adult standards. She thinks it is unreasonable to expect a 10-year-old who has only been in the family for a year to think strategically and act with such authority. Alan stares back with a blank expression, seemingly unable to grasp why his expectation is flawed. The two lock eyes in a silent clash of perspectives, the tension palpable at the table. Alan picks up his wineglass and admits quietly, "Yeah, you're right about that," conceding the point. He turns to Rebecca and apologizes directly, saying simply, "I'm sorry." Rebecca looks at him in surprise, stunned to hear an apology from the Duke himself. Sophia watches the scene, wondering if she might have misunderstood Lord Alan's character. She had thought him cold, but his willingness to listen and apologize contradicts her assumptions from the contract and the dream. She questions if she has ever met someone like him before who listens to opinions and responds so directly. Rebecca suddenly interjects, crying out, "No, Your Grace. It was wrong of me to lie," taking the blame again. Alan sighs, agreeing that it is true she shares some of the blame, refusing to go easy even on a child. He instructs her sternly to think carefully and speak properly as a duke's daughter from now on. Rebecca wipes her tears and responds with a loud, "Understood," her face determined. Sophia smiles, realizing that Alan was treating Rebecca in his own way, as a member of the ducal family with responsibilities. The maid brings out a cat-shaped pudding, breaking the tension as the meal continues. Sophia reflects that if Alan and Rebecca get along better, the chances of changing the tragic future will rise. Suddenly, she notices Rebecca staring at her with intense, tear-filled eyes. The girl begins to sob, unable to eat her pudding as emotions overwhelm her. Through her sniffles, Rebecca thanks Lady Sophia very much for today. Rebecca bows politely at the door, excusing herself to finish her studies, showing her renewed dedication. Sophia suggests she doesn't have to push herself, but is surprised when Rebecca insists on studying right now because she genuinely wants to. With eyes shining and a genuine smile, Rebecca declares her desire to continue her studies despite the difficulties. She explains that she wants to become a duke's daughter worthy of acknowledgement by both Lord Alan and Lady Sophia. Sophia clutches her chest, overwhelmed by a sudden swell of emotion she can't quite identify. She realizes she feels a complicated mix of loneliness and affection, wanting to hug the child but holding back to respect her growth. Smiling warmly, Sophia promises to cheer her on but gently reminds her to take care of herself and not overdo it. Rebecca beams back with a radiant "yes," her face full of newfound confidence and happiness. As the girl leaves, Sophia stands alone in the room, wishing there was something more tangible she could do to help her. Determined to take action, Sophia stands before a large door and knocks, steeling herself before the voice inside invites her in. She opens the door to the study, finding Alan seated at his desk amidst stacks of paperwork. Sophia steps inside and excuses herself, her expression serious as she prepares for a difficult conversation. Alan looks up from his work, his expression unreadable but attentive as he waits for her to speak. Standing firm before the Duke, Sophia resolves that there is something important she must do first before anything else. Sophia resolves that she must deal with the situation immediately, her determination unwavering. She steps into Lord Alan's study and excuses herself, though he looks up with a slightly tired expression. Silence hangs between them for a moment, punctuated only by the clinking of teacups as he takes a break. Alan breaks the silence, asking bluntly what it is she wants to talk about. Sophia bows her head deeply, stating she has come to formally apologize for what happened earlier today. She admits guilt for acting on her own, and Alan calmly questions if she means dismissing the tutor. Sophia confesses that she dismissed the tutor, acknowledging it went against their agreement not to interfere with his work. Alan offers a surprising smile, suggesting that her dismissing the tutor doesn't exactly count as a contract violation. He reveals that since the tutor was originally chosen by the butler, not him personally, firing her isn't a breach of his direct orders. Sophia is momentarily confused, thinking that surely dismissing staff without permission is still an issue. She stammers a confused, really?" unable to process how easily he is letting her off the hook. Alan clarifies that the specific clause she violated isn't as strict as she assumed in this context. He points out practically that they will still need to hire another tutor to replace the one she fired. Sophia immediately suggests herself for the role, asking if she could become Lady Rebecca's tutor. Alan looks surprised by the proposal but admits he doesn't think it would be a bad idea. However, he refuses, stating that it would only add to her workload and he'd rather have the butler find someone else. Sophia counters that she wants to do it because it will let her spend more time with Lady Rebecca and grow closer to her. Alan considers this logic, realizing that her taking the role would indeed foster a better relationship between them. Seeing his hesitation, Sophia pleads, "Please let me do it." And Alan finally relents, saying, "No, I'm fine with it." Sophia beams, realizing that not only is the contract safe, but she has gained more than she could have hoped for. She resolves to tell Lady Rebecca the good news first thing tomorrow morning, excitement bubbling within her. Suddenly, Alan calls out to her, and she turns back with a yes. He asks curiously why she suddenly started getting along with Lady Rebecca, noting the change. Sophia freezes, realizing she can't explain about the prophetic dream without sounding crazy and risking divorce. She thinks quickly, deciding to hold back the truth about the dream for now. Instead, she claims she happened to learn about Lady Rebecca's upbringing today and felt compelled to act. Alan prompts her to continue with a simple, and, waiting for the rest of the explanation. Sophia explains she thought it must be lonely and painful for a 10-year-old girl to be all alone in a strange place. She admits she thought it was far too much burden for a child to bear alone. With a soft expression, she confesses that she wanted to grow closer to her as a family to ease her heart, even just a little. Alan looks down, admitting he hadn't thought that far ahead, his expression somber. He acknowledges that her perspective might be true, conceding the point with a quiet, "I see." Sophia smiles, thinking he understood, and reflects internally that she might relate because she and Rebecca are somewhat alike. Alan suddenly asks if it has been hard for her too since coming to the ducal house, surprising her. Sophia looks at him in shock, realizing he is showing genuine concern for her well-being. She denies it quickly, saying she wouldn't go that far, but appreciates the thought. Alan tells her seriously that he'll do what he can to improve things and asks her to tell him if anything is troubling her. Touched by his unexpected consideration, Sophia thanks him, admitting she didn't expect him to be so kind. She tells him that she actually thinks it is thanks to him that Lady Rebecca has grown, despite his strictness. Alan looks confused, noting that until now, Rebecca had never shared her feelings with him. He realizes that today was the first time she was able to speak her mind, thanks to Sophia's intervention. He admits with a sigh that he guesses he really was too strict with her. Sophia reassures him that she believes his actions were out of concern for Rebecca's future as the head of the house. Alan sits silently for a moment, looking vulnerable as he confesses, "I thought it was different." Sophia asks, "Lord Alan?" gently, sensing there is more to his thoughts. He looks up with a sharp, piercing gaze, staring directly at her. Abruptly, he turns away and says, "It's nothing," deciding not to voice his deeper thoughts. He tells her to just keep getting along with Lady Rebecca, murmuring that if it's the two of them, they might actually become a real family. Sophia wonders why he would say something so distant, her mind racing with questions. She feels as if he believes he could never be a part of that warmth. A look of determination hardens her features as she processes his resignation, visual. Breaking the silence, she urges Lord Alan to please try to get along with Lady Rebecca too. She reveals that Lady Rebecca explicitly stated she wanted to get along with him, asking if that is really so. When Alan dismisses their bond as merely, on paper, Sophia counters that they are already family. Internal doubts surface as she worries that she is simply not good at this kind of emotional exchange. Alan concedes that they can become a real family from now on, though Sophia hesitates at his phrasing. With burning conviction, she declares that both she and Lady Rebecca absolutely want to become family with him. Her expression softens into a gentle, inviting smile, visual. Alan stares back, his eyes wide with genuine shock at her passionate assertion. He asks if that is really something so surprising, leaving Sophia blinking in confusion. Suddenly, a realization strikes her like a physical blow. Panic sets in as she realizes her words about wanting to be family could be interpreted as a desire to be loved as a wife, which is a breach of contract. Flustered, she screams an apology, frantically clarifying it was a figure of speech and not a romantic desire. Alan watches her frantic explanation with a faint, amused smile, visual. He calmly assures her he didn't interpret her words with that kind of intent, easing her fears. Sophia freezes, blushing furiously at her own awkward misunderstanding. Relieved yet flustered, she feels her heart skip a beat when she sees him smile. Reminding herself she cannot fall in love, she abruptly thanks him for his time and rushes to leave. At the door, Alan thanks her for a meaningful time, leaving her confused as they bid each other goodnight. The heavy door clicks shut, leaving her alone in the quiet hallway, visual. Exhausted by the emotional roller coaster, she collapses face first onto her bed. She consoles herself that at least she managed to avoid an immediate divorce for breach of contract. As sleep claims her, she resolves to keep doing her absolute best starting tomorrow. Her consciousness fades into white, and she wonders if she is slipping into another dream. Drifting through the haze, she questions if this is a lucid dream or another prophetic one. A familiar voice calls her name, cutting through the dreamscape. She stirs, trying to place the voice calling out to her. A vision of Alan smiling through tears appears, radiating a strange warmth, visual. He gently asks if she is awake as narration recounts how the Duke fell madly in love with her despite their contract. Sophia's eyes fly open in sheer terror as reality crashes in visual. She wakes up to find herself in the same bed as Lord Alan, screaming internally at the situation. Beside her, a sleeping Alan murmurs the word, love, deepening her shock. He wakes up groggily, rubbing his eyes and reminding her to call him Alan. He smiles warmly, leaving Sophia questioning if this sweet Lord Alan is a dream or reality. Overwhelmed, Sophia clutches her chest, unable to handle the cuteness and her racing heart. In a heartwarming moment, Rebecca whispers that she is happy to be family with Lady Sophia. The scene concludes with a beaming Rebecca hugging a bunny, confirming she is just so cute. Sophia reflects on her past as a poor count's daughter and the strict contract forbidding her from interfering with or loving the Duke. She recalls the prophetic dream she had just yesterday, foreseeing a tragic end for her stepdaughter. Flashbacks show her desperate run through the storm to save Rebecca and her dismissal of the tutor. The tutor watches in shock as Sophia asserts her authority as both duchess and stepmother. Sophia refuses to let Rebecca endure such education, insisting she should have dismissed the abusive staff herself. She thinks back to how she finally managed to fall asleep safely after the chaos. Waking in confusion, she wonders why she is suddenly in the same bed as Lord Alan. Alan wakes and smiles radiantly, wishing her a good morning. Flustered and confused, Sophia stammers a greeting back to him. Alan looks puzzled, noting that he thought he went to sleep alone yesterday. He questions her sudden use of formal speech while she tries to convince herself this is just another dream. Leaning closer, he reminds her that he explicitly told her to just call him Alan. Sophia freezes as she notices the distinct sensation of his hand on hers. Her eye widens in shock as the tactile reality of the moment hits her. Panic sets in as she tries to halt the situation, overwhelmed by his proximity. She thinks that even if this is a dream, the intensity is too much for her heart to bear. Alan grabs her wrists and asks why she is reacting this way as she stammers about the lack of distance. She flushes, realizing the distance between them is dangerously non-existent. As he pulls her close, she wonders why she is being pushed around in her own dream and apologizes. Alan simply smiles and accepts her apology with a casual assurance that it's fine. Sophia blushes furiously, her heart pounding in her chest. She frantically tries to reassure herself that this is merely a lucid dream and not a prophetic one. The realization strikes that if this is a dream her subconscious wants, she is in deep trouble. She reminds herself of the contract clause explicitly forbidding her from loving Lord Alan. Overwhelmed by her feelings, she collapses against him in defeat. Alan gazes at her affectionately, murmuring the word, love. Sophia screams internally that this dream is far too dangerous. She resolves that she must wake up immediately to escape these feelings. Alan notices her distress and asks why she feels she needs to wake up. She explains that telling herself it's a dream sometimes helps her wake up sooner. Pausing, she realizes how ridiculous she must sound talking to a dream figure. She insists that the situation really does feel exactly like a dream. Turning to him, she asks if he thinks so too, slipping back into formal address. Alan stares at her intensely, criticizing her return to formal speech. Correcting herself, she asks again, calling him Alan. A gentle smile spreads across his face as he looks at her visual. He admits that months ago, he wouldn't have believed the idea of loving someone and having a family was possible. He pauses, looking at her with deep affection. Touching her hair, he confesses that loving her and becoming a family with Rebecca brings him joy from the bottom of his heart. He smiles warmly, confirming that this reality truly makes him happy. Stunned by his confession, Sophia slams her hand against the wall in shock. He lifts her chin, telling her it hurts that she dismisses their reality as just a dream. He asserts firmly that this is not a dream. Determined to prove it, he decides he must teach her body to understand the truth. He pulls her into a tight embrace, instructing her to close her eyes. He whispers into her ear that this will be her punishment. Sophia gasps in anticipation as he leans in closer. Her eyes snap open in sudden realization as the sensation confirms this is no dream. Sophia wakes up in her bed, blinking in the morning light and wondering if she is finally awake. Realizing she is alone, she sighs with immense relief, confirming that the intimate encounter was indeed just a dream. She reflects on the dream's realism, noting how the dream Alan referred to himself casually as I, unlike his usual formal self. In her memory, the dream Alan spoke plainly about asking Lady Rebecca, a stark contrast to his stiff reality. She compares this to the real Alan, who is always strictly professional and never interrupts his work for personal matters. She finds it strange that the dream Alan even knew details about Countess Narble, which the real Alan presumably wouldn't focus on. Shaking her head, she leans against the window frame and tells herself firmly not to overthink the details. She looks out the window, trying to dispel the lingering unease from the vivid nightmare visual. A flash of a hand gripping a knife briefly crosses her mind, a remnant of the tragic end prophecy she fears visual. She forcefully dismisses the thought, insisting it was just a lucid dream and absolutely not a prophetic one. The scene shifts to the exterior of the grand ducal mansion under a bright morning sky visual. At breakfast, Alan enters the dining room and formally wishes her a good morning. Distracted, Sophia automatically replies, "Good morning, Alan," inadvertently dropping his title. Alan freezes in his tracks, his expression blank with surprise at the sudden informality. Sophia gasps, her face draining of color as she realizes her slip of the tongue. She panics, apologizing profusely and blaming the aftereffects of her confusing dream for the disrespect. Alan calmly assures her there is no need to apologize, leaving Sophia stammering her thanks. He gazes at her silently for a moment, his expression unreadable but intense visual. To her surprise, he suggests that maybe this is a good opportunity for them to stop using honorifics altogether. He explains that he doesn't want them to keep addressing each other like strangers. A soft breeze blows through the room as he looks at her with a gentle, inviting expression visual. Testing the waters, he addresses her simply as Sophia. Sophia stares at him, her eyes wide and cheeks flushing at the intimacy of her name on his lips visual. Flustered, she agrees to his request, and he asks if it is truly all right to call her that. He thanks her softly, the tension in the room melting into something warmer. He then grants her permission to call him Alan, as well, mirroring the intimacy. Sophia blushes, her mouth parting in silent surprise at his openness visual. With a racing heart, she gathers her courage and tentatively says his name, Alan. A distinct gasp escapes Alan as the sound of his name seems to strike a chord within him. He smiles brilliantly, a genuine blush dusting his cheeks, and confirms that it sounds fine. Sophia is mesmerized by his smile, her own eyes wide with wonder visual. However, he sets a condition that they should only use names when alone, reverting to honorifics in public. The maid serves tea as Sophia nods, agreeing to the private arrangement. Outside, the sky remains clear, marking the passage of time after the meal visual. Alan excuses himself from the table, stating he has work to attend to. He walks past her chair, his hand brushing near hers as he leaves visual. As he exits the room, Sophia is shocked to hear him softly humming a tune. She can't believe he is in such a good mood, wondering if it's really because of the name change. She stares at his retreating back, questioning if calling each other by name had that much impact. Suddenly, Alan stops and glances back, sensing her gaze. Sophia flinches, realizing she was staring visual. He asks what's wrong, but she quickly looks away and claims it's nothing. He accepts her answer and resumes walking, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Watching him walk down the corridor, she tries to convince herself that the morning's dream was just a dream and this change is merely practical. Despite her rationalizations, she sits alone at the table, unable to shake the feeling. Clutching her chest, she wonders what to do about the pounding of her heart that refuses to calm down. Sophia slaps her cheeks hard to psych herself up, her face tightening with determination as she prepares for the task ahead. Staring into the mirror, she steels herself for her first day as Lady Rebecca's tutor, vowing to overcome her nervousness and pull herself together. A sudden knock at the door interrupts her internal pep talk, causing her to whirl around in surprise. Opening the door, she is shocked to find Lady Rebecca standing there, looking up at her expectantly. Rebecca beams up at her with a radiant smile, clutching a bouquet of flowers in her small hands and wishing her a good morning. Shyly presenting the bouquet, Rebecca apologizes for the early intrusion while fidgeting nervously. Kneeling to meet her eye level, Sophia listens as Rebecca explains she brought the flowers to thank her for yesterday's help. Sophia gently advises her to use the door properly next time, offering a small lesson in etiquette. Rebecca's eyes well up with emotion as she realizes Sophia remembered a small detail she had mentioned, touching her deeply. Sophia reaches out, her hand gently hovering before offering a comforting touch to the young girl. Accepting the bouquet with a warm smile, Sophia promises to treasure the thoughtful gift. Rebecca's eyes widen in sheer amazement at the genuine gratitude she receives. Suddenly remembering her own news, Sophia crouches down to share that she has something important to tell her as well. She reveals with a smile that she has officially been appointed as Lady Rebecca's new tutor. Rebecca gasps in delight, hardly daring to believe the good news that Sophia confirms is true. The young girl stands frozen for a moment, mouth agape as she processes the joyous revelation. Recovering her composure, Rebecca performs a clumsy but earnest curtsy to greet her new teacher. Beaming with happiness, she formally introduces herself, expressing her excitement to learn under Sophia. Sophia clutches her chest, physically struck by the overwhelming cuteness of the gesture. Her mind floods with thoughts of how adorable her stepdaughter is, struggling to maintain her professional composure. Regaining her focus, Sophia asks if Rebecca has any immediate plans, to which the girl shakes her head. Gazing out at the bright sky, Sophia tentatively proposes a suggestion to start their day. Moving to the garden gazebo, Sophia asks Rebecca to show her what she has studied up to this point. Sophia is stunned into silence as Rebecca presents a massive, teetering stack of completed textbooks. Flipping through the dense material, Sophia breaks into a cold sweat at the advanced level of the content. She stares in disbelief at the mountain of books, struggling to comprehend that Rebecca finished them all in a single year. Trying to reconcile the mean tutor with these results, Sophia asks how exactly Countess Narble conducted her lessons. Rebecca explains that the tutor simply set test scopes and left her to self-study and review mistakes entirely on her own. Sophia freezes, asking for clarification to ensure she heard correctly that was the extent of the teaching. Rebecca nods innocently, confirming that was mostly it, unaware of how neglectful the method was. Gripping the book tightly, Sophia realizes the tutor did absolutely nothing but administer tests, sparking her fury. Rebecca quotes the tutor's manipulative excuse about true knowledge coming from self-learning. Raging internally at the tutor's laziness, Sophia listens as Rebecca describes how she taught herself everything from scratch. The heartbreaking truth dawns on Sophia that Rebecca's desperate late-night studying was solely to pass these unfair tests. Rebecca admits she pushed herself because she believes she isn't smart, heartbreakingly undervaluing her own genius. Sophia covers her mouth in shock, realizing her silence might have been interpreted as agreement. She quickly grabs Rebecca's hands, apologizing profusely for unintentionally making her feel inadequate. Sophia earnestly praises her stepdaughter, affirming that her immense effort has become a valuable part of her strength. Looking at the sparkling stack of completed books, she marvels at the sheer volume of knowledge absorbed in just 1 year. She smiles warmly, telling Rebecca that she is an incredibly hardworking and wonderful young lady. Rebecca looks up with wide, hopeful eyes, asking if Sophia truly believes that. The girl timidly asks if continued hard work will ever allow her to become a splendid daughter of the Duke. Sophia is struck by the question, the word, someday, echoing painfully as she recalls the tragic prophecy. She firmly pushes aside the fear of the prophetic dream, refusing to let a dark future dictate their reality. Squeezing Rebecca's hands reassuringly, she answers with absolute certainty that she will succeed. As a carriage departs in the distance, Sophia silently vows to nurture the incredible person Rebecca is already becoming. Meanwhile, Alan stands in his formal attire, looking out with a contemplative expression. From the shadows of the estate, Alan silently watches the heartwarming scene between his wife and daughter in the garden. Sophia and Rebecca greet Alan as he returns, their faces flushed as they welcome him home. Alan acknowledges them with a slightly surprised, "Ah," returning their greeting. When he asks what is happening, Sophia explains they were just discussing Rebecca's studies. He notes that Sophia is now officially serving as the tutor, confirming the new arrangement. He turns his gaze to Rebecca, instructing her to learn well from Sophia's kind teaching. Rebecca beams and gives a loud, enthusiastic yes in response to his directive. Sophia observes their interaction, thinking that the conversation finally feels somewhat like a real family. Remembering Rebecca's desire to get closer to Alan, she desperately hopes the conversation continues smoothly. However, the pressure to maintain the flow makes her panic, and her expression becomes strained and awkward. Alan stares at her blankly, confused by her sudden silence and strange look. An uncomfortable silence falls, highlighting the persistent emotional distance between them despite a year together. Sophia realizes with dismay that their ability to express themselves and connect is still painfully lacking. Determined to bridge the gap, she decides to act, refusing to let the distant formality continue forever. She focuses on the way Rebecca addresses him, finding the title, "Your Grace," too stiff for a stepfather. Nervousness grips her as she prepares to voice her bold suggestion to the Duke. Gathering her courage, she asks Alan if he would allow Rebecca to simply call him Alan to break the barrier. Alan looks at her, processing the unexpected request with a thoughtful expression. A close-up of his eyes reveals a flicker of emotion as he considers the change. He calmly states that he doesn't mind if Rebecca is okay with it, noting he never insisted on the formal title. Relieved, Sophia turns to the hesitant little girl, encouraging her to try it out. Alan looks expectantly at Rebecca, his expression softening as he waits for her response. Tears well up in Rebecca's eyes as she looks up and timidly tests the name, Lord Alan. Alan smiles gently in the dappled sunlight, reassuring her that the name is perfectly fine. Sophia watches them with a warm, relieved smile, happy to see the wall between them crumble slightly. Alan thanks her for the suggestion, and she bows her head, grateful for his acceptance. Suddenly, Rebecca chirps up, reminding Sophia that she too was supposed to call him by his name without honorifics. Sophia freezes in sheer panic, her eyes widening as the girl innocently reveals her secret permission. Alan interjects calmly, clarifying that it is fine as long as they are not in public. He silences any further doubt with a simple, powerful declaration, "Because we're family." Sophia stares at him, her eyes wide and shimmering with emotion at the weight of his words. The tender moment is interrupted as the butler approaches to signal the time for his departure. Sophia remains frozen, clutching her chest as the warmth of his statement sinks in. Alan and Rebecca share a final glance before the reality of his schedule pulls him away. Sophia blushes deeply, overwhelmed by the sudden intimacy of the situation and his acknowledgement of their bond. The butler confirms the schedule, and Alan announces he must leave for work. He bids them farewell, turning to head toward the waiting carriage for his trip. Both Sophia and Rebecca wave him off with bright smiles, wishing him a safe journey. Alan glances back with a soft expression before confirming he is off. Sitting in the carriage, Sophia reflects on how much that moment truly felt like a family. She smiles confidently, resolving that from now on, things will continue to improve just like this. Walking away, Alan closes his eyes and silently hopes that they can keep growing closer. A title card announces a look at the aftermath of the household's change in addressing each other. That night at the villa, the scene shifts to Lady Rebecca's bedroom. Rebecca practices saying Lord Alan over and over, asking her maid if she is saying it properly. She smiles blissfully, repeating the name with pure joy while holding a bouquet of flowers. Meanwhile, in her own bedroom, Sophia sits in a panic, wondering if she gave Lord Alan too much advice. Her anxiety spirals as she worries he might cancel the contract or secretly hated her addressing him informally. Outside her door, a maid sweats nervously as she hears Sophia groaning in despair. Alan sits at his desk, confirming with his butler that tomorrow's schedule concludes at his office in the main estate. He specifies the location is where Sophia and Rebecca were earlier, prompting the butler to arrange the carriage pickup. His thoughts drift to the sweet memory of Rebecca calling him Lord Alan and wishing him a safe trip. A soft chuckle escapes him as he gazes at the papers, clearly pleased by the memory. He covers his mouth, trying to hide his smile and telling himself it is nothing. The butler interrupts his reverie with a loud cough, startling Alan into an awkward response. In her bedroom, Rebecca sleeps with a flushed face, causing her maid to worry she might have caught a cold. The girl mumbles a polite refusal of food in her sleep, revealing she is simply having a pleasant dream. A title card marks the beginning of a new segment titled, Encounter. Sophia stands with a smile, introducing herself as a new teacher at Private Bernard Elementary School. Her colleague, Mr. Neo, welcomes her and presents a new transfer student arriving for the next term. Sophia screams internally at the girl's cuteness as Rebecca introduces herself with sparkling eyes. Later, Sophia nurses a stomach ache from stress, realizing the immense pressure of working at a school owned by the Duke. Sophia wakes up to a bright morning sky, announcing that today is a very special day. Beaming with excitement, she declares that today is the day Lady Rebecca finally moves into the main residence. The story flashes back to a few days earlier, showing Sophia nervously standing before Alan to make her request. She reflects on how she has been boldly asking Alan for things she never would have dared to before, all for Rebecca's sake. She lists her recent requests, releasing the abusive tutor, having family dinners, and changing how they address each other. Mustering her courage, she approaches Alan as he prepares to leave for work, asking for one more favor. Alan turns to her with a faint, amused smile, asking what it is this time. He looks at her expectantly, his expression open and willing to listen. Sophia hesitates, fidgeting nervously as she tries to articulate her request without overstepping. She explains her concern about Rebecca living alone in the detached residence, feeling it is too lonely for a family member. She boldly proposes that either Rebecca moves into the main house or she herself moves to the detached residence to keep her company. Alan looks surprised by the suggestion, his eyes widening slightly as he processes her reasoning. Sophia mistakenly interprets his silence as disapproval and worries he can hear her heart pounding from nervousness. However, Alan agrees readily, suggesting they arrange a room for Rebecca in the main house immediately. He apologizes that he is too busy with work to handle the details himself and asks Sophia to take charge of the arrangements. Sophia beams with joy, thanking him profusely for his permission and trust. As he leaves, Alan teases her slightly, telling her she had better get back to her own work soon. Sophia waves him off happily, relieved and thrilled by his easy acceptance of her request. Alan watches her go with a thoughtful, slightly melancholic expression. He silently repeats her words about the separate residence, seemingly struck by the implication of distance. A thought bubble reveals he is thinking deeply about Sophia, though his specific thoughts remain unvoiced. Suddenly he worries if something happened to Rebecca, questioning why she hasn't arrived yet. Just then, Rebecca appears, peeking out shyly and calling Sophia's name. She steps forward with a bright, "Good day," her face lit up with a radiant smile. Sophia is still in disbelief that this is happening, asking if it is really okay for Rebecca to live in the main estate. She reassures the girl that she is family and that Lord Alan himself gave his permission. Rebecca blushes, looking down at her hands, clearly overwhelmed with happiness. Sophia leads her to a large double door, announcing that this will be her new room starting today. She asks if Rebecca wants to open it, and the girl nods eagerly. With trembling hands, Rebecca pushes the heavy doors open, revealing a blindingly bright room. Light floods out as she steps inside, her eyes widening in wonder. The room is magnificent, filled with light and space, a stark contrast to her previous lonely accommodation. Rebecca gasps, her mouth agape as she takes in the grandeur of her new personal space. A close-up shows her eyes sparkling with sheer amazement and delight. The centerpiece is a huge canopy bed with two adorable stuffed bunnies sitting on it. Rebecca whispers a soft, "Wow," completely captivated by the thoughtful details. Sophia watches her reaction nervously, wondering if she liked the room and the gifts. Suddenly, Rebecca turns and hugs Sophia tightly, burying her face in the stuffed bunny she was holding. She exclaims that it is really, really cute, melting Sophia's heart instantly. Sophia internally celebrates the success of her dignity fund, spending, wishing she had bought even more stuffed animals. Rebecca admits that while she loves it, she feels the room is a bit too spacious for just her. She confesses she prefers smaller spaces because they feel less lonely, revealing her deep-seated fear of isolation. Sophia's expression softens into sadness as she apologizes for not considering that perspective. Panic crosses Rebecca's face as she realizes she might have sounded ungrateful, quickly retracting her words. Sophia reassures her, laughing gently and telling her she prefers her to speak her mind honestly. She suggests they can sit on the sofa and have sweets later to fill the space with warmth. She promises that since she couldn't make the room smaller, she will simply fill it with her presence. As she adjusts Rebecca's ribbon, she vows to spend enough time with her so she never feels lonely again. Rebecca clutches her stuffed bunny tightly, stammering that she could not possibly impose on Sophia to such an extent. Sophia gazes down at the young girl, her expression softening into a gentle, reassuring silence. She smiles warmly and asks if Rebecca dislikes her company, clarifying that she simply wishes to stay by her side. Rebecca looks up in surprise, her eyes widening as the sincerity of the words sinks in. Her grip on the plush toy tightens as she processes the offer of genuine companionship. Tears well up in her eyes as she smiles brightly, shaking her head to deny any dislike. Sophia beams with relief, feeling the distance between them shrink, while Rebecca whispers a heartfelt thank you. Internally, Sophia hopes to one day see Rebecca's future in a dream again, wondering if these changes have altered her fate. Rebecca glances around the spacious room, her curiosity piqued by a missing detail. Sophia notices the girl's wandering gaze and tilts her head, asking what has caught her attention. Rebecca points out the absence of a desk, noting that the villa always had one in the bedroom. Sophia chuckles mischievously, clearly pleased that Rebecca noticed the discrepancy. She gestures confidently, announcing that the desk is actually located in an adjoining room. Opening a side door, Sophia explains that she separated the study space to ensure the bedroom remains a place of rest. The door reveals a bright, sunlit room furnished with a sturdy desk and chairs, waiting to be used. Sophia suggests that Rebecca decorate this bare room herself using things she learns or creates from now on. Rebecca stares into the light-filled space, murmuring the words, "by myself," as she envisions the possibilities. A maid interrupts the moment, placing a hand on the table to get their attention. The servant announces that the unpacking is complete, and Sophia thanks her for the hard work. Turning back to Rebecca, Sophia notes that since they have already enjoyed snacks on the sofa, they should move on. Rebecca listens intently, clutching her bunny as she awaits the next suggestion. Sophia proposes they try studying in the new room, and Rebecca responds with quiet determination. Outside the window, the estate remains peaceful under the watchful eyes of nature. Through the glass, the two can be seen bent over books, immersed in their shared study session. Sophia is astounded, praising Rebecca for getting every single question right regarding history and politics. Rebecca blushes humbly, insisting that her success is entirely due to Countess Narbel's prior guidance. Sophia gently corrects her, marveling at the kindness of a girl who can thank an abuser for her own hard work. Internally, Sophia panics, realizing she cannot teach magic and that Rebecca is already academically superior, necessitating a new tutor. Rebecca notices Sophia's frozen expression and anxiously asks if she got an answer wrong after all. Sophia snaps out of her spiral, shouting a vehement denial to reassure the worried girl. She heaps praise upon Rebecca, calling her incredibly talented and wonderful for achieving a perfect score. Rebecca's eyes shimmer with emotion as the validation washes over her. Unable to contain her affection, Sophia hugs her tightly, declaring how proud she is to be family with someone so special. Rebecca covers her mouth with her hands, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love. She shyly confesses that she is also happy to have become family with Lady Sophia. Sophia looks down at her, touched to the core by the child's reciprocal affection. They embrace warmly, exchanging tearful thanks for the bond they are building. Sophia suddenly pulls back with energy, deciding they must create a reward right now for such a brilliant girl. Rebecca looks up with wide, curious eyes, repeating the word reward in anticipation. With a playful smile, Sophia leans in and invites Rebecca to join her in this new endeavor. Sophia surprises Rebecca by suggesting they create a special reward right here and now, sparking curiosity in the young girl. She explains that before her marriage she used to make sweets herself, and gently asks if Rebecca enjoys such treats. Rebecca stammers shyly, admitting that while she hasn't had them often, she actually likes sweets very much. Sophia ponders a recipe simple enough for a beginner but is suddenly struck by the terrifying realization that she has never actually cooked before. A wave of anxiety washes over her as she stares blankly, questioning whether she can actually pull this off without any experience. Pushing aside her doubts, she clenches her fist with determination and cheerfully announces that they will make pancakes. The kitchen staff freezes in absolute shock as the noble lady and her charge unexpectedly march into their domain. Sophia politely requests to borrow a corner of the kitchen, causing the flustered staff to panic about their disruption. Ignoring the murmurs of the staff, Sophia begins preparations while the chefs whisper concern about the ingredients being meant for breakfast. The head chef tries to intervene by asking about eggs, but is swiftly directed by Sophia to simply lead the way. Sophia hums happily about pancakes, reasoning that since the household rarely serves dessert, she must take matters into her own hands. She speculates that Lord Alan likely finds all food tasteless, then instructs Rebecca to carefully tap the egg with her thumb. Rebecca focuses intently on the task, carefully cracking the eggshell into the bowl as instructed. Sophia claps her hands in delight, praising Rebecca's success with the egg as if it were a monumental achievement. Moving on to the next steps, Sophia lists butter, flour, and sugar as the essential ingredients to be added to the mix. The ingredients are poured into the bowl, and the sound of vigorous mixing fills the air as the batter takes shape. Rebecca whisks the mixture with intense concentration, beads of sweat forming as the chefs watch the chaotic scene nervously. Sophia declares the batter complete, presenting the bowl to Rebecca and asking if the amount looks sufficient. Rebecca holds the heavy bowl with trembling hands, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Sophia beams a radiant smile, assuring the girl that the batter is perfect and that she did a wonderful job. Overwhelmed with happiness, Rebecca hugs the bowl tightly, cherishing the praise and the sweet scent of their hard work. Sophia takes charge of the actual cooking to ensure safety, instructing Rebecca to keep mixing the remaining batter. The batter hits the hot pan, sizzling as it transforms into golden brown pancakes under Sophia's watch. A perfectly cooked pancake is plated, topped with a generous pat of melting butter that slides down the side. Rebecca gasps in awe, her eyes sparkling as she exclaims how soft and fluffy the creation looks. She declares her love for the treat, bringing a satisfied and happy smile to Sophia's face. Sophia suggests they take the pancakes and some tea back to Rebecca's room to enjoy a private party. The kitchen staff huddles together in the background, trembling with fear that they might be fired for allowing this to happen. Sophia and Rebecca make their exit, leaving the bewildered kitchen staff behind in their wake. Sophia turns back to thank the chefs for lending their important space, apologizing for the sudden intrusion. She waves cheerfully, wishing them luck with their remaining work as she departs with the pancakes. The chefs bow and wave goodbye, still dazed by the whirlwind visit of the lady of the house. Back in the room, Rebecca takes a bite and exclaims with delight that the pancakes are absolutely delicious. Sophia watches her with a soft expression, thinking that the girl's adoration is the best reward of all. She gently reminds Rebecca to eat slowly, warning her that she might choke if she rushes through the meal. This page contains a table of contents and no story content, marking a brief structural break in the narrative. Sophia sits opposite the girl, reflecting that watching Rebecca eat so cutely is enough to make her feel full. A sudden realization strikes Sophia, and she pauses with a gasp as she looks at the table. Rebecca places her cutlery down on the empty plate with a clatter, signaling she has finished her portion. She politely thanks Sophia for the meal, looking satisfied and full after the delicious treat. Sophia pushes her own untouched plate forward, asking if Rebecca could possibly eat her portion as well. Feigning fullness, Sophia claims she lost her appetite watching and practically begs Rebecca to handle the extra food. She smiles brilliantly, insisting, of course, while presenting the second stack of pancakes to the hesitant girl. Sophia uses a guilt trip, warning that their hard work will go to waste if Rebecca doesn't eat it. A fleeting memory surfaces of a past where she complained bitterly about having no food to eat. In the present, Sophia maintains her benevolent smile, holding the plate out with unyielding pressure. Rebecca nervously agrees to eat the second serving, unable to refuse the intense offer. She stuffs her cheeks with the pancakes while Sophia watches with a satisfied, triumphant grin. Rebecca happily munches on the pancakes, murmuring about how cute the moment is while Sophia watches affectionately. A bright smile lights up Rebecca's face, bringing joy to Sophia as they share this warm moment together. Lord Alan apologizes for leaving the moving arrangements to Sophia and confirms Rebecca will live in the main residence from today. He adds that Rebecca performed exceptionally well on a written test they administered earlier that day. Alan reveals that she achieved a perfect score, answering every single question correctly across a wide range of topics. He remarks that she has been studying very diligently, prompting a surprised reaction from Sophia. Sophia hesitates, voicing her concern that Rebecca might be overdoing her studies a little. Alan pauses, asking her to clarify what she means by that statement. Sophia explains that the previous tutor left Rebecca to study entirely on her own, tackling material too advanced for her age. She recalls the overwhelming nature of the previous tutor, noting that even Lord Alan would feel guilty if he knew the truth. Alan looks puzzled, asking if studying alone isn't just how the process is supposed to be. Sophia stares at him in silence, baffled by his lack of awareness regarding normal education. Alan returns her gaze with equal confusion, unable to grasp why she finds his statement odd. Rebecca looks between them with wide, innocent eyes, sensing the shift in the conversation. Sophia asks Lord Alan if he also studied alone as a child, fearing the answer she is about to receive. He confirms casually that study time with a tutor was reserved solely for solving test problems. Sophia freezes in shock, her mind reeling from the revelation of his isolated upbringing. Rebecca mirrors Sophia's surprise, her mouth slightly agape at the news. Alan tilts his head, genuinely confused by their dramatic reactions to his mundane statement. Sophia is in disbelief that he was raised that way, wondering if this is simply the educational standard of the Bernard household. Alan states matter-of-factly that book learning is easy since one should remember everything after reading it once. Sophia and Rebecca collectively lose their composure, stunned by his casual display of genius. Alan remains oblivious to the shock he has caused, waiting for an explanation. A sudden realization strikes Sophia as she connects the dots between father and daughter. She turns her head slowly, looking toward Rebecca with a new suspicion. Sophia asks if Rebecca is the same as her father, realizing the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Rebecca admits she likes reading, and Sophia realizes that remembering everything immediately is just normal for them. With a beaming smile, Rebecca clarifies that she is fine as long as she reads the book twice. Alan looks slightly surprised by her limitation, murmuring a quiet response to her statement. Sophia realizes this genius is in their blood and laments that she could absolutely never do that. She concludes that while the method matched Rebecca's brilliance, forcing her to study late at night was still harmful. Alan accepts this logic, agreeing that they must tailor Rebecca's education to suit her specific needs. Sophia suggests revisiting the idea of a magic tutor, noting that the book learning seems mostly complete. Changing the subject, Alan asks Rebecca how her lesson with Sophia went earlier. Rebecca beams, reporting that she was nervous but Sophia was kind and the lesson was very fun. Alan's interest peaks when she mentions cooking sweets together, and he asks for clarification. Rebecca confirms they made them together, prompting Alan to turn his gaze towards Sophia. Sophia breaks into a cold sweat, terrified that Rebecca might be scolded for doing kitchen work. Rebecca bravely admits that she did it, standing by her actions despite the tension. Sophia quickly interjects to explain that she gave the cooking lesson as a reward for Rebecca's outstanding test performance. Alan looks back at Rebecca, accepting the explanation with a thoughtful expression. Rebecca eagerly suggests that Lord Alan should try the sweets they made as well. Alan hums in thought as Rebecca enthusiastically vouches for the delicious taste. He agrees to try it and asks Sophia to make it right away, catching her completely off guard. Sophia panics internally at the thought of feeding him but hurriedly agrees that she can prepare it quickly. Sophia stands frozen in disbelief, her mind racing with the shocking realization that Lord Alan intends to eat her homemade pancakes. She frets internally, questioning if he is actually okay with sweet things since she has never once seen him consume them. Alan calmly accepts the offer without hesitation, prompting Sophia to snap to attention and declare she will get started immediately. As she prepares to leave, Sophia muses that it is good for Rebecca to gain new hobbies and wonders if the girl has developed a genuine love for baking. Alan interrupts her train of thought, apologizing as he explains he must return to his office for scheduled work. He requests that she bring the food to him whenever it is ready, and Sophia obediently acknowledges the order. A heavy silence falls between them as Alan gazes at her with an unreadable expression. Sophia corrects herself to address him simply as Alan, prompting him to point out that she had slipped back into using honorifics. He dismisses the mistake with a short phrase, indicating that it is fine. Walking away, Sophia reflects on how difficult it is to get used to addressing him casually without the formal titles. She reasons that maintaining such distance will prevent them from ever becoming the family she proclaimed she wanted them to be. Resolving to bridge the gap, she decides she will refer to him as Alan, even within the privacy of her own heart. Back in the kitchen, the head chef panics over the disruption to his duties, but Sophia clasps her hands and begs to cook just a little more. She pushes past the chaos with singular focus, declaring that right now her only priority is making delicious pancakes. Rebecca tugs at her sleeve to get her attention, interrupting Sophia's intense cooking trance. The young girl looks up with eager eyes and asks if she can be the one to flip the pancakes this time. Sophia agrees instantly with a bright smile, happy to let Rebecca take the lead. In the background, the kitchen staff continues to lose their composure, yelling about spilled ingredients and misplaced knives. Sophia warns Rebecca to be careful of the heat as the batter sizzles in the pan, and Rebecca nods in understanding. Rebecca holds the spatula with intense concentration while Sophia watches over her like a hawk. With a sudden movement, Rebecca attempts the flip, but the pancake lands awkwardly with a splattering sound. She looks down dejectedly at the misshapen pancake, but Sophia immediately praises her effort for a first attempt. Rebecca blushes at the encouragement and murmurs a shy thank you. Sophia cheerfully suggests they make another one, confident that Rebecca will improve and finding her childlike focus absolutely adorable. Rebecca stares at the pan, her expression hardening into one of renewed determination. She clenches her fists and declares she will do her best, ready to try again. A perfectly cooked pancake sits on a plate, glistening with a generous topping of melting butter. Alan comments that the service was faster than expected as Sophia presents the finished dish to him. Sophia explains they only had to cook them and asks if the butter and honey toppings are acceptable. Rebecca attempts to downplay her role, but Sophia interjects to insist that Rebecca mixed the batter and flipped it herself. Rebecca shyly admits that Sophia is better at flipping and that she only followed instructions, while two very different-looking pancakes sit on the table. Alan studies the plate, deducing from the irregular shape that Rebecca cooked the specific one in front of him. Rebecca waits with bated breath, vibrating with anxiety as he scrutinizes her handiwork. He simply tells her to keep improving, his tone neutral and calm. Sophia sighs internally, wishing he would praise the girl more, but decides it is acceptable since Rebecca does not seem disheartened. Alan cuts into the pancake with a knife and fork, preparing to take the first bite. He closes his eyes as he chews, his face remaining completely unreadable. Sophia and Rebecca watch him intently, their hearts pounding in unison as they await his verdict. Sophia stares at him, realizing she cannot read his reaction at all. She recalls that she has only ever seen him eat with a totally blank expression, making this moment even more nerve-wracking. As he pauses mid-chew, Sophia panics, terrified he is about to say something harsh like, disgusting. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple as the silence stretches on. He finally speaks, stating simply that it is delicious. Sophia lets out a confused sound, momentarily stunned by the positive feedback. Rebecca beams with pride, loudly agreeing that Sophia's sweets are always super tasty. Alan agrees with his daughter, confirming once more that the food is delicious. Sophia blinks in surprise, processing the fact that she definitely did not mishear him. She wonders if Alan actually likes sweets, feeling a surge of happiness that they might all share this common interest. Sophia smiles warmly and says she is glad the pancakes suited his taste. She then curiously asks Alan if he actually likes sweet things. Alan looks away and admits that, truthfully, he does not really like them much. He elaborates that he dislikes them enough to have ordered the cooks not to serve them during meals. Sophia realizes with a start that he must have been forcing himself to eat earlier just to be considerate toward Lady Rebecca. Rebecca turns pale with horror, realizing she unknowingly forced Lord Alan to do something he didn't like. Alan immediately reassures her, stating firmly that if he really didn't want to eat it, he would have simply said no. He insists that he isn't using flattery and genuinely thought the food was delicious. Rebecca asks for confirmation with wide eyes, and Alan simply replies with a definitive yeah. A rare, gentle smile graces Alan's face as he thanks them for the meal and repeats that it was delicious. Rebecca beams with joy, relieved and happy to hear his praise. A moment of quiet passes as the group relaxes after the meal. Sophia offers to get some tea, but Alan suggests she just call a maid to handle it instead. Rebecca eagerly volunteers to go call one and dashes off before anyone can stop her. A heavy silence descends on the room as Sophia and Alan are left alone together. Sophia looks down, her expression clouded with a lingering doubt she needs to address. She gathers her courage and asks him directly if the pancakes were really delicious. Alan responds with his usual stoicism, stating flatly that he does not tell pointless lies. Sophia accepts this, reflecting internally that he indeed doesn't seem like the type to use flattery. Alan muses that he hasn't eaten sweets in years, so it is possible his tastes have simply changed. Sophia watches him intently, surprised by his introspection. He touches his chin thoughtfully and decides that if his tastes have changed, that is a good thing. He notes that Lady Rebecca seems to have taken a genuine interest in making sweets. Sophia agrees enthusiastically, thinking that sharing sweets will help Rebecca bond with the person she has always wanted to get along with. Alan notices her sudden energy and asks if that is really the case. Sophia admits with a blush that seeing Alan and Rebecca together just now made them look like a real family. She confesses that the scene was so heartwarming she just wanted to keep watching them forever. She suddenly exclaims, "That's right," as a new idea strikes her. She declares that she and Lady Rebecca will definitely make more sweets together in the future. She invites Alan to join them, insisting that he should eat with them next time too. Alan stares at her, his expression softening in response to her bright invitation. He smiles gently and agrees, admitting that joining them doesn't sound so bad. Sophia feels heat rise to her cheeks as she stares at his unexpected smile. She clutches her chest, realizing that her heart is fluttering again. She tries to rationalize the feeling, telling herself it's just because his smile resembles Rebecca's and he is objectively handsome. Panic sets in as she worries that if she stays near him, he will notice how nervous she is. Alan suddenly stands up, noting that Lady Rebecca is late and deciding to go check on her. As Sophia tries to follow, she loses her footing and begins to fall. The world spins as she tumbles forward, unable to catch herself. Alan shouts her name in alarm, reaching out to break her fall. Sophia covers her face in mortification, thanking him quietly for catching her. Alan holds her steady, apologizing for the sudden movement and asking if she is all right. Sophia is consumed by shame, thinking she must look pathetic and has failed as a noblewoman. She keeps her head lowered, unable to meet his eyes due to the embarrassment. Alan gazes down at her, his expression shifting from concern to a quiet curiosity. He gently touches her hair, wondering aloud why he feels this way. He confesses softly that when he is with her, he feels warm inside. Sophia looks up in absolute shock while Alan awkwardly tries to normalize the moment. Internally, Sophia's mind explodes with panic as she tries to process everything she has said and done so far. Sophia panics internally, wondering if Alan's sudden confession of warmth is actually a sign that he is suffering some sort of magical consequence. She is terrified that their business contract is going to be nullified because of this breach, and she mentally screams an apology to Alan. Her spiraling thoughts are interrupted by a voice announcing the arrival of tea for Lord Alan and Lady Sophia. Rebecca enters the room carrying a heavy tea service, announcing that she has brought the refreshments herself. Alan thanks Rebecca for her effort as she carefully maneuvers the large tray toward them. Watching the scene, Sophia feels a wave of relief and is simply glad that Lady Rebecca came back when she did. She mentally scolds herself to stay focused, resolving to continue this contract marriage to ensure a happy future for Rebecca. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes loudly, marking the passage of time. Alan apologizes for keeping them so long and suggests they excuse themselves so he can return to his work. He adds softly that their visit was a good change of pace for him. Sophia looks at him with a surprised blush, touched by his unexpected kindness. Rebecca wishes him good night, while Sophia stammers that she is glad to hear he enjoyed the break. As they leave, Sophia clenches her fist in victory, celebrating that Alan actually liked the sweets. She tells Rebecca that the success is entirely due to her earnest help and the fact that the sweets were delicious. However, she privately wonders why Alan looked so satisfied eating such a fairly ordinary recipe. Rebecca suddenly reaches out and grabs Sophia's hand, stopping her in the hallway. The young girl declares that she wants to make sweets with Lady Sophia again in the future. Sophia smiles warmly and agrees, saying she also enjoyed making them with Rebecca. She suggests that they can share their creations with Alan again next time. Rebecca agrees with a quiet, "Okay," as they continue walking hand in hand. Suddenly, Rebecca stops walking again, prompting Sophia to look down at her in confusion. Rebecca recalls the moment she saw Sophia call Lord Alan by his name without using any honorifics. She looks up at Sophia with a serious, intense expression, her cheeks slightly flushed. She squeezes Sophia's hand tighter, seeking comfort and courage. A close-up reveals the determination and vulnerability in Rebecca's eye. Rebecca points out that Sophia speaks to Lord Alan without any titles, asking if that is true. Sophia admits it is true and asks if there is something wrong with addressing him that way. Rebecca stammers, trying to articulate her thoughts but struggling to find the words. She looks down nervously, clutching Sophia's fingers as she hesitates. Her eye reflects a deep longing as she prepares to make a request. She stops completely in the middle of the hallway, causing Sophia to turn back to her. Sophia explains gently that Alan was the one who told her to call him by his name. Rebecca grips her own hands together tightly, her heart pounding as she speaks up. She looks up at Sophia with big, shimmering eyes full of hope. Blushing deeply, she asks if Sophia would please do the same for her. She shyly requests that Sophia drop the honorifics and simply call her Rebecca. Sophia beams with happiness and immediately agrees, hugging the girl and calling her Rebecca. Rebecca stammers a thank you, overwhelmed by the warmth of the embrace. Sophia insists that she should be the one apologizing for being too formal despite them being family. She realizes she needs to be more mindful of her interactions with Alan and admits she hadn't truly accepted Rebecca as family either. A solemn thought crosses her mind. She is the only one who knows that Rebecca faces ruin in the future. Sophia's expression hardens with resolve as she vows to protect the girl. She asks gently if there is anything else Rebecca would like to ask of her. Rebecca freezes, thinking that the question is too sudden and she isn't ready to ask for more. She struggles internally, realizing she cannot force the words out just yet. Sophia senses the hesitation and reassures her that she can tell her anything, anytime, and she will do whatever she can to help. A beautiful vision of a happy family life flashes through Sophia's mind. Sophia suddenly notices Rebecca reacting to something and looks down in concern. Rebecca stammers and abruptly retracts her statement, claiming it is actually nothing after all. Sophia internally questions this retreat, wondering if Rebecca is holding back out of excessive consideration after being turned down. Rebecca fidgets nervously with her hands, struggling to find the right words to express herself. She smiles warmly and holds Sophia's hand, asking her to wait until she is brave enough to say the request herself. Sophia gazes down softly, accepting the girl's hesitation with a quiet understanding. She admits she is curious but promises to wait patiently by Rebecca's side until the day she is ready to speak. Rebecca beams with gratitude while Sophia reaffirms her commitment to wait for that future moment. A vision of a happy future flashes through Sophia's mind, showing the three of them smiling together as a true family. Returning to reality, Sophia notes that Rebecca must be exhausted from the long day. She opens the bedroom door and bids Rebecca goodnight, instructing her to get some rest. Rebecca steps into the room but suddenly stops in the doorway. She peeks back at Sophia with a hesitant, vulnerable expression. She confesses that she feels lonely in the big new room and shyly asks Sophia to stay with her. Sophia flushes bright red, caught off guard by the adorable request. Rebecca asks if they can sleep together, and Sophia enthusiastically agrees before hustling into the room. They settle into the large bed, with Sophia tucking the girl in under the warm covers. Sophia wishes she could hear the request immediately but resolves to respect Rebecca's pace and feelings. She smiles with relief, realizing that this patience is proof that she is truly learning to love Rebecca. Lying beside the sleeping girl, she reflects that her words and feelings often feel out of sync. She struggles with the desire to express her emotions without knowing exactly how to articulate them. A quiet moment passes as the morning light begins to filter into the room. Sophia muses that perhaps family is defined by the things that cannot be expressed through mere words or actions. She drifts off to sleep with a peaceful smile on her face. In her dreams, she sees a radiant Rebecca holding a bouquet of flowers, finally understanding what a true family means. Sleeping side by side, Sophia hopes that someday the girl will finally call her mother. Their hands remain tightly clasped together as they rest. In a bonus scene, classmates observe Rebecca sitting alone during break time. The other children worry she prefers solitude but decide to invite her to play dodgeball anyway. They nervously approach her and ask what she wants to do during the lunch break. Rebecca explodes with unexpected intensity, shouting that she wants to play dodgeball with everyone. She dominates the game with terrifying strength, leaving the boys cowering in fear of her power. A merchant calls out to the madam at the castle exterior, urging her to inspect his wares. He presents the latest trend in gold embroidery, claiming it beautifully complements her hair color. Another item is revealed, a rare gemstone that the merchant insists is a perfect match for her eyes. The room is filled with eager merchants displaying their goods to a silent, seated Sophia. Sophia lets out a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of the situation. She recalls Alan telling her to pick whatever she likes from the jewelers and dress merchants he arranged for the social gathering. Despite their enthusiasm, she realizes she has no actual desire for material things. Overwhelmed by the sheer volume of beautiful items and the direct attention, she feels lost on what to choose. She briefly considers playing the part of a haughty duchess and buying everything in a row just to end the ordeal. The merchants begin to look confused and anxious at her continued lack of reaction. She stares blankly at a piece of fabric, unable to muster any enthusiasm. Rebecca suddenly peeks into the room, looking disheveled and asking what is wrong. She steps inside to report that her dance lesson for the day has finished. When Sophia asks if she had fun, Rebecca stammers a nervous confirmation. Rebecca explains that she practiced with Mr. Neo, the head butler. Neo enters and bows formally as Sophia thanks him for assisting with Rebecca's lesson. He smiles warmly, assuring her that he will gladly do anything she instructs. Sophia asks about the dancing, and Neo praises Rebecca's talent, calling it absolutely wonderful. Rebecca flushes and humbly insists that she still has a long way to go. Neo immediately corrects her, refusing to let her downplay her ability. He states that, like his master, he does not offer empty flattery. A merchant interrupts the moment, addressing Sophia to ask a question. He inquires about the identity of the young lady standing with them. Sophia introduces Rebecca Bernard as her stepdaughter and prompts her to greet the merchants. Rebecca curtsies politely and introduces herself by name. The merchant is honored, noting that her elegance made him suspect she was Duke Benhard's daughter. Rebecca quietly thanks him for the kind words. Sophia and Neo exchange a look, agreeing that Rebecca is behaving very composedly. Sophia observes that Rebecca seems to be gradually gaining confidence. The merchants observe the pair, and one of them seems to have a sudden realization. A look of calculated inspiration strikes the merchant's face. He approaches Sophia with a specific item, asking for her opinion on it. Sophia looks at the item with mild hesitation. The merchant slyly mentions there are two of them, allowing her to match with Lady Rebecca. Sophia's demeanor instantly shifts as she enthusiastically agrees to buy it. She internally admits that she has no choice but to buy anything that matches with Rebecca. Seeing the strategy work, the merchant quickly presents more options. He reveals they have fabric ready to create custom dresses in matching designs. Sophia's interest is piqued as she considers the possibility. She shouts for him to place the order immediately as he confirms the sizes are customizable. Despite questioning her own impulse control, she thanks the merchant profusely. Rebecca tries to intervene, but Sophia declares that one can never have too many matching dresses. Rebecca argues that this is Sophia's shopping trip and she shouldn't be buying things for her stepdaughter. Sophia counters that buying matching items with Rebecca is exactly what she wants to do. Rebecca looks touched by the sentiment as Neo watches the heartwarming scene with a smile. Sophia continues her spree, snatching up earrings that can also be matched. Later, outside the castle, Sophia wonders nervously how she looks in her new attire. She stands revealed in her new gown, ready to be seen. A voice calls out to the madam, complimenting that the outfit suits her perfectly. Sophia looks down at her dress, wondering if the pink and blue design is a little too cute for her age. Rebecca steps forward, beaming with delight in her matching gown. She nervously looks at her stepmother and asks for her opinion on the look. Sophia claps her hands in pure adoration, internally screaming that Rebecca looks absolutely too cute. She tells Rebecca it suits her perfectly and asks the girl to give her a twirl. Rebecca spins happily, thanking Sophia and insisting that she looks beautiful as well. Sophia beams and suggests that, since it is a special occasion, they should conduct today's lesson in their new dresses. They move to the garden for a special event, Rebecca's very first hands-on magic lesson. Neo steps forward to teach the practical application, explaining that he must take over since Lady Sophia cannot use magic herself. Sophia narrates that Neo, a Viscount's son, is qualified to tutor Rebecca in a world where almost all nobles possess magical power. Sophia watches from the sidelines, relieved that the stretching portion is finished. She reflects on the difficulty of controlling magic and the requirement for noble children to enter the Magic Academy at age 12. After learning the basics, students choose their paths, ranging from research and knighthood to taking over family businesses or marriage. Neo concludes the warm-up and asks Rebecca if this is truly her first time attempting to use magic. Rebecca nods nervously, confirming that she has only learned the theory from Lady Sophia. Neo strokes his chin thoughtfully, acknowledging her lack of practical experience. He decides to begin their instruction with the fundamental basics. Neo manifests a floating sphere of water, explaining that water magic is the safest element for beginners even if they fail. Rebecca stares in awe at the floating liquid while Sophia watches intently from her table. Sophia gazes at the shimmering water, captivated by its beauty. Neo instructs her to say the incantation, Aqua, to help visualize the spell, and Rebecca prepares to give it her best shot. She closes her eyes, focusing all her concentration on the image of water. Silence falls over the garden as the three figures stand in anticipation. Rebecca takes a deep breath and softly chants the word, aqua. A sudden surge of magical energy erupts from her cupped hands. Rebecca panics at the sensation, but Neo gently instructs her to stay calm and slowly open her hands. She opens her hands to reveal a massive, wobbling sphere of water hovering above them. Sophia stands up in shock, realizing her stepdaughter has successfully cast the spell. Neo praises the result as wonderful, though Rebecca looks at the unstable shape with uncertainty. The water blob distorts and wobbles as Rebecca worries that it isn't as stable as her teacher's demonstration. The spell suddenly loses cohesion and splashes away, leaving Rebecca looking dejected at her failure to hold it. Neo quickly intervenes to assure her that what she just did was actually amazing. Rebecca looks up at him, eyes wide with confusion at the praise. She looks back down at her hands, still unsure of her own ability. Neo smiles reassuringly, though a drop of sweat on his cheek betrays his genuine shock. He insists he isn't exaggerating, as the sphere she created was unbelievably massive for a beginner. Rebecca blushes and fidgets with her hands, overwhelmed by the compliment. He looks at her with genuine respect, reiterating that she is truly amazing. Sophia clasps her hands together, simply admiring how pretty Rebecca looks in the moment. Rebecca holds up her hands and stammers a shy thank you. Neo claps his hands and suggests they try attempting some other types of magic as well. From a nearby bench, Alan watches the lesson, noting that he has a better view from this spot. He observes Rebecca's performance, musing that she seems to have some potential. Sophia turns to her husband, her face flushed, and calls his name. She indignantly asks if he really considers that massive display of raw power for a 10-year-old to be merely some potential. Seeing his nonchalant reaction, she realizes that Alan himself must have been even more gifted than Rebecca as a child. Alan changes the subject, recalling that Sophia possesses magical power but is unable to actually use it. Sophia explains that possessing magic power qualified her for the Magic Academy, though her father had high hopes for her potential. She admits she dropped out after 1 year because she couldn't use magic, a humiliating failure for a noble. Weighed down by guilt, she felt she couldn't do anything and had let everyone down. Alan listens quietly to her story and simply acknowledges it with a short phrase. He remarks matter-of-factly that there are indeed people like that in the world. Sophia looks up at him, surprised and touched by his lack of judgment. She realizes that Alan never once mentioned or questioned her magic from the very beginning. Dark memories resurface of others calling her a useless girl who got their hopes up for nothing. The voices of her past sneer that she has absolutely no talent. Sophia understands now that Alan is not the kind of person to judge her based on those standards. Sitting beside him on the bench, she feels a sudden sense of relief wash over her. Alan hums thoughtfully as he looks at her. He notices her outfit and asks if those clothes are matching with Rebecca's. Sophia explains she had them made by merchants earlier to have matching outfits as proof they are family. Alan looks dejected, revealing he blew his dignity maintenance budget trying to buy something matching as well. Misunderstanding his mood, Sophia cheerfully declares she will buy tons of things for Rebecca, leaving Alan stunned. He finally asks the burning question of why she didn't get anything for him. Alan looks at her intently and asks why she doesn't have matching clothes with him. Sophia freezes, letting out a confused sound at his unexpected request. He stares at her with a serious, expectant expression, waiting for an answer. Realizing her oversight, she stammers an apology and admits she didn't prepare anything for him. Alan turns away, looking visibly disappointed as he accepts her answer. Sophia observes that although his expression hasn't changed much, he is clearly feeling down. She wonders how she is able to read his mood so easily despite his lack of expression. Since she was the one who proposed becoming a family, she decides it would be sad to leave him out. She apologizes again and promises to make sure she prepares something for him next time. Alan perks up immediately, smiling and telling her he will leave it to her. Sophia thinks to herself that he actually has an unexpectedly cute side. She contrasts this domestic moment with her initial impression of him as a troublesome womanizer. Neo suddenly shouts for the madam to look out. Sophia turns her head in confusion at the sudden warning. A massive shadow looms over them as the giant water sphere comes crashing down. The scene shifts to a memory triggered by the water, focusing on the word, housekeeper. A young Rebecca cries in a flashback, refusing to play dodgeball anymore because she fears getting dirty. Sophia asks what's wrong, wondering if the child got hurt yesterday. Rebecca explains that if her clothes get dirty, the housekeeper gets mad at her. Sophia narrates that further questioning revealed numerous abuses, including dietary restrictions, which shocked her. She resolved the issue by visiting Alan's foster father and employer to explain the situation during a surprise home visit. In another flashback to the dress purchase, a merchant asks to take Rebecca's measurements. Neo questions Sophia, asking if she is really sure about ordering this specific dress. He argues that Rebecca is still growing and will need a new dress for her social debut anyway. Neo points out that she may not get many chances to wear this outfit before outgrowing it. Sophia counters that she wants to match with Rebecca as she is right now, capturing her fleeting cuteness. She adds that, of course, she intends to match with the grown-up Rebecca one day as well. Convinced of her choice, she states that this is perfectly fine because matching makes her want it even more. Neo closes his eyes and accepts her reasoning with a simple acknowledgement. Sophia thanks him for his concern, and Neo apologizes for his unnecessary comment. The flashback ends as the giant water sphere splashes down with a massive sound effect. Sophia fumes internally, unable to believe that Alan could hire such a housekeeper, and waits impatiently for his return to demand an explanation. Alan arrives home and is greeted by the household staff at the entrance. Sophia confronts him immediately, looking him in the eye and asking if he was aware of Rebecca's mistreatment. Alan looks blank for a moment before admitting that he knew, a confession that pushes Sophia's rage to the breaking point. In a sudden shift to a happier scene, Rebecca sits before a treat, clasping her hands and exclaiming that this is fun. The view focuses on the hem of her dress dangling from the chair. A title card introduces a new segment regarding a childhood friend. A young man speaks to an unseen listener, asking Professor Sophia if she was okay yesterday. He smiles, noting that his stepfather Bernhard is behaving as expected and that the housekeeper situation seems resolved. He scratches his cheek awkwardly, admitting that being invited to a meal with Rebecca and her feels a bit heavy. He tries to spin it as enjoyable but quickly falters, correcting himself to say it sounds tough. Alan stares at a message in confusion, reading the sender's cheerful encouragement to do your best as the volume concludes. Encouraged by her maid's promise of wind support, young Rebecca eagerly prepares to cast her next spell. With a trembling voice, the girl chants the incantation to summon the power of the earth. A massive, jagged boulder materializes in the air, looming ominously over the small group. Realizing the stone is far too large, the disguised maid Neo swiftly prepares wind magic to suppress its movement. The heavy rock crushes through the wind barrier with terrifying force, descending rapidly upon them. Neo watches in horror as his magic fails to control the massive object, realizing he has lost his grip on the spell. A warning cry rings out as the massive shadow falls over Sophia, signaling imminent impact. Alan instantly dashes forward, throwing his body between the falling debris and his wife to shield her. Amidst the settling dust, the Duke looks down at the woman in his arms and anxiously asks if she is all right. His voice is laced with concern as he repeats the question, checking Sophia for any sign of injury. Still in shock from the near-death experience, Sophia stammers out a breathless confirmation that she is safe. She suddenly becomes acutely aware of his strong embrace and her face flushes red as she realizes she is unharmed. Alan breathes a sigh of relief, his expression softening as he confirms she is safe. Sophia gazes up at him, her heart pounding as the intensity of the moment lingers between them. Flustered by their proximity, she hastily pulls away and apologizes for clinging to him in her panic. Alan calmly dismisses her apology, stating that he was the one who pulled her close because it was an emergency. Mortified by his blunt honesty, Sophia internally pleads for him to stop narrating his actions so shamelessly. He innocently asks if she bumped her head since her face is so red, while she mentally screams at his density. Neo frantically rushes toward the couple, shouting to check on both his master and the lady. Rebecca stands frozen in the background, her face pale with terror at the accident she caused. Bursting into tears, the young girl apologizes profusely for losing control of her magic. Sophia gently comforts the weeping child, assuring her that everything is fine because Alan protected them. Instead of scolding her, Sophia praises Rebecca's impressive potential for casting an earth spell on her very first attempt. To further soothe the girl's anxiety, she cheerfully suggests they bathe together later to check for any hidden injuries. The adults stand in silence as the tension of the accident shifts into a discussion of responsibility. Neo bows his head deeply, offering a sincere and grave apology to both the Duke and Duchess. Alan confronts his servant with a sharp gaze, questioning if the skilled magic user had been careless in his supervision. Sophia attempts to interject, but the atmosphere remains heavy with the Duke's scrutiny. Neo explains that he wasn't careless, but the sheer power of Rebecca's spell simply overwhelmed his wind magic. Alan acknowledges the explanation, realizing the child's raw power exceeded their expectations. A silent understanding passes between the men as the gravity of the potential disaster settles in. Despite the circumstances, Alan insists that a punishment is required since the Duchess was nearly injured. When Sophia tries to waive the punishment, Alan firmly asks her to decide on a penalty to uphold the house's laws. Sophia deliberates, acknowledging her role in asking Neo to teach but recognizing the need for a formal response. She glances between the stern Duke and the remorseful servant, weighing her options carefully. The tension holds as everyone awaits her verdict on the servant's fate. She tentatively proposes a 20% pay cut for 1 month, hoping it isn't too harsh. Sophia explains her leniency by reminding them that she isn't angry precisely because Alan kept her safe. Alan gazes at his wife with a look of surprise and quiet affection at her reasoning. He accepts her decision without argument, deferring to her judgment on the matter. Neo bows again in gratitude for her generosity and vows to ensure such an accident never happens again. Sophia nods firmly, confirming that she trusts him to do better next time. Alan watches the interaction silently, his expression unreadable but calm. With the discipline settled, the group prepares to move on from the incident. Alan turns his attention to the trembling Rebecca, calling her name to give instruction. He advises her to focus on circulating mana within her body to build control before attempting to cast spells again. His gaze is stern but educational, guiding the young talent on the proper path of magic usage. Rebecca looks up at him, absorbing the advice with wide, tearful eyes. She responds with a determined yes, eager to improve and correct her mistake. Sophia observes them, realizing Rebecca's immense talent requires a professional instructor rather than ad hoc lessons. Later in the bath, Sophia gently rinses Rebecca's hair and checks if the girl is squeezing her eyes shut. Rebecca admits she isn't injured but apologizes again, confessing she just wanted to bathe with Sophia. Sophia smiles warmly, assuring the child that she is happy to spend this time together and isn't angry at all. Rebecca explains her belief that families bathe together, and Sophia agrees that close families certainly do. The girl beams with joy, declaring how happy she is to be treated like family. Sophia echoes the sentiment, enjoying the peaceful bonding moment after the day's chaos. The warm water and gentle atmosphere wash away the lingering stress of the magical accident. At dinner, Alan apologizes for arriving late, asking if he kept Sophia waiting. Plates and glasses are set on the table as the evening meal begins in a quiet atmosphere. Sophia observes her husband as he excuses himself to begin the meal, reflecting on his usual dining habits. Sophia reflects on her happiness, realizing that Alan is making a genuine effort to become a true family with them. Turning to the young girl, Alan asks Rebecca how her mana control practice went earlier that day. Rebecca eagerly confirms she followed his instructions exactly, though she admits she doesn't feel much improvement yet. Alan reassures the dedicated student that mana control takes time and her skills will naturally improve with persistence. Satisfied with her determination, the Duke offers a single, approving word. Sophia watches them with a warm smile, noting that Rebecca and Alan have been talking much more lately, which is a very good sign. Alan suddenly pauses, remarking that something about Sophia's expression seems different today. Surprised by the sudden observation, Sophia blinks and asks if that is really true. He studies her face intently, murmuring that she somehow looks a little younger than usual. Touching her face, she realizes the difference is likely because she removed her makeup before dinner. Alan candidly states that while she is always beautiful, she looks cute right now, causing Sophia to hide her face in embarrassment. The unexpected compliment catches her so off guard that she nearly drops her goblet in shock. Composing herself, she stammers out a thank you, though her heart is still racing. Alan looks at her with innocent confusion as she hesitantly asks him to clarify what he just said. Without a hint of shame, he repeats that she is beautiful with makeup, but without it, she is cute. The blunt repetition hits Sophia like a physical blow, leaving her stunned by his directness. Flustered, she stammers that he isn't wrong, while he calmly explains he was just stating his objective thoughts. He elaborates that she usually looks dignified and beautiful, but looking younger makes her appear cute as well. Sophia falls silent, trying to process the compliment while the maids in the background smile warmly at the scene. Rebecca watches the exchange with wide eyes, her face flushing as she works up the courage to speak. The young girl loudly declares that she also thinks Lady Sophia is always beautiful and cute. Sophia is overcome with emotion, covering her mouth as the maids giggle at the adorable display of affection. Beaming with happiness, Sophia thanks Rebecca for her kind words. She returns the compliment, telling the blushing girl that she is very cute too. Alan watches the heartwarming interaction, his gaze softening as he observes his wife and the girl. Breaking the moment, Alan reminds Sophia that the social party is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. Sophia internally convinces herself that Alan's earlier compliments were merely objective observations rather than subjective affection. He confidently assures her that if she is her usual beautiful self, there will be no problems at the event. Sophia tries not to overthink his words, reminding herself that Alan isn't the type to use empty flattery. The narrative shifts to the upcoming event, which will be Sophia's high-stakes debut in high society as the Duchess. A preview reveals the couple dressed in their finest formal wear, signaling the start of the social world arc. Alan states with absolute conviction that he doubts any woman exists who could surpass her. The scene transitions to the party atmosphere, where the air is thick with the scent of wealth and hidden agendas. Sophia senses the calculating gazes of the nobility, realizing she is surrounded by ulterior motives. She feels the weight of their staring eyes, judging her as if she were merely a walking advertisement. A new figure approaches to introduce herself, giving her name as Natasha. The smiling young woman drops a bombshell, revealing that she has actually met Sophia before. Sophia is shocked to realize the stranger is a former classmate, leaving her wondering what happened. It is revealed that Natasha and Sophia attended the same classes at the Magic Academy, setting the stage for the next volume. The morning sun rises over the castle towers, signaling the start of a momentous day for the new Duchess. Maids busy themselves with adjusting Sophia's gown while young Rebecca watches from a plush chair, eagerly awaiting the transformation. The young girl beams and exclaims that Sophia looks beautiful, prompting a warm thank you from the Duchess for her patience. Despite having attended many parties, Sophia feels a unique nervousness knowing this is her official debut in high society as a Duchess. As she steps into the carriage, Sophia anxiously realizes that any unbefitting behavior today could potentially nullify her marriage contract. She steps into the dark interior of the carriage, steeling herself for the high-stakes social battlefield ahead. Inside, Alan sits waiting and Sophia apologizes for the delay, her voice trembling slightly. She addresses him formally as Lord Alan, meeting his gaze in the dim light of the carriage. Alan asks if she is prepared, and Sophia confirms she is ready, though her nerves are evident in her stutter. He signals for them to depart and extends his hand towards her with a calm demeanor. He gently requests her hand, inviting her to join him fully for the event. Sophia hesitates for a split second before whispering an agreement and placing her gloved hand in his. The carriage rattles into motion, carrying them through the cobblestone streets toward the venue. Alan asks if she is nervous, while Sophia frantically tries to calm her racing heart by telling herself they are only holding hands. Startled by his perception, she quickly stammers a denial, trying futilely to hide her anxiety. Alan observes her flushed face silently, seeing right through her attempt to appear composed. The carriage continues its journey as Sophia sits stiffly, sweat forming on her brow from the tension. She admits she is trying her best to act like a proper Duchess, acknowledging that she is indeed a little nervous but will be fine. Alan reassures her that with no royals or other ducal families present, there is no one she needs to fear. His casual mention of royals makes Sophia realize the immense weight of her new role, but she resolves to stay composed. He warns her to be cautious of business propositions involving large sums, instructing her not to agree to anything without his approval. He explains that as a Duchess, she controls household funds, which makes her a target for those seeking to take advantage of a newcomer. Aside from financial caution, he tells her she is free to do as she pleases, and Sophia acknowledges the instruction. Sophia thanks him, realizing that her background as a poor noble might make people think she can be easily bought. She clenches her fist, determining to do her absolute best to navigate these social pitfalls. Sophia visualizes the burden of money and spending weighing on her head as she stands beside the Duke. Seeing her intensity, Alan gently tells her that she doesn't need to try so hard. The carriage comes to a halt, signaling their arrival at the party venue. Though still nervous, she steels herself to pull it together and face the crowd. Before they enter, Alan stops her, saying there is just one more thing he wants to tell her. She turns to him, asking what he needs to say right before their entrance. A gentle breeze passes between them as she waits expectantly for his words. He reaches out to gently adjust a lock of her hair, ensuring she looks perfect for the venue. His hand lingers for a moment as he finishes fixing her appearance. He tells her to hold her head high because there isn't a single woman more beautiful than her. Sophia stands stunned, her mind blanking on the financial worries she was just obsessing over. As they walk into the chandelier-lit hall, Alan asks if she didn't hear him, noticing her silence. Blushing furiously, she stammers that she didn't expect such a comment and assumes it must be his objective opinion again. She frantically rationalizes that he means her dress and jewelry, convinced that her attire makes her outshine the others. Alan looks at her with a heavy gaze, preparing to correct her misunderstanding. He clarifies that even without the expensive adornments, he still believes no one surpasses her. The weight of his sincere compliment leaves her speechless and frozen. Desperate for a logical anchor, she asks if that statement is also just objectively speaking. He confirms that yes, even objectively she is unmatched. She lets out a breathless sigh, overwhelmed by the intensity of his praise. He chuckles slightly and asks if she is feeling less nervous now that he has distracted her. With a mood lightened, he commands that they move forward into the bustling party. Sophia thinks to herself that her nerves are definitely still present despite his reassurance. However, as she grips his arm, she realizes the feeling is different than it was before. A guest approaches immediately, greeting Duke Bernard with formal respect. The man asks to speak with the Duke regarding future business expansion, launching straight into work. Sophia politely urges Alan to go ahead with the discussion, stating she will rest elsewhere for a moment. Walking away, she congratulates herself on handling the situation with the grace expected of her station. She resolves to keep up this momentum and do her best on her own while he is occupied. A noblewoman approaches with a bright smile, introducing herself to Duchess Bernard. More guests surround her, eager to greet the new Duchess and make their presence known. An older gentleman introduces himself as Marc Helteria, asking her to remember him. Sophia politely introduces herself as Sophia Bernard and returns the Marquis's greeting properly. She realizes with awe that high-ranking nobles are now initiating greetings with her, something unthinkable when she was a mere count's daughter. As another guest calls her name, she acknowledges that this world is vastly different and she must adapt quickly. A nobleman steps forward to greet the new Duchess, introducing himself formally as Count Aninif. He gestures to the young woman standing beside him, presenting his daughter to Sophia. The girl bows stiffly and introduces herself as Natasha, though her voice lacks confidence. Natasha falls silent, staring at Sophia with a look of dawning recognition and dread. Her father nudges her when she freezes, prompting a startled gasp as she snaps back to reality. Sophia tightens her grip on her glass to steady her nerves, reminding herself that she is no longer a mere count's daughter before greeting them. She calmly reveals that she and Lady Natasha have actually met before. The count looks puzzled by the revelation, while Natasha's face pales with visible shock. Sophia explains that they attended the same classroom and took joint lessons together at the Magic Academy. The count stammers in surprise at this connection, unaware of the history between the two women. Sophia keeps her gaze fixed on Natasha, coolly asking if the girl has perhaps forgotten her. Internally, Sophia pities the girl, thinking it is rather sad to see Natasha so terrified. She remembers clearly that Natasha was one of the bullies who looked down on her the most when she was poor. Flashbacks reveal how Natasha would coldly turn her back whenever Sophia tried to approach her. Sophia recalls the sting of being deliberately ignored by her wealthy classmate. The memory of Natasha's mocking laughter and cruel sneers plays vividly in Sophia's mind. In the present, Natasha looks down at the floor, unable to withstand the weight of her past actions. She stammers incoherently, unable to form a valid excuse for her behavior. Natasha closes her eyes in resignation, letting out a heavy sigh as she realizes she has no defense. Her eyes snap open in panic as her father attempts to intervene and save face. The count hurriedly explains that his daughter dropped out after 1 year, using it as an excuse for her poor memory. He laughs nervously, trying to dispel the tension while Natasha trembles beside him. Desperate to avoid offense, the count apologizes again for his daughter's failure to recognize the Duchess. Sophia smiles graciously, stating it is fine as long as Natasha remembers her from now on. She dismisses them to enjoy the party, leaving the pair bowing in gratitude and relief. As Sophia turns to leave, She leaves the terrified father and daughter behind in her wake. She looks at her champagne glass, satisfied that she handled the confrontation with appropriate dignity. Determined to move forward, she decides to focus on the social gathering and leave her past behind. High above the city streets, a lone figure gazes out from a window, contemplating the events that have just unfolded. Sophia sighs, realizing that seeing Natasha has forced her to recall unpleasant memories she had happily forgotten over the last few months. She concludes that since Natasha pretended they were strangers, the woman likely feels absolutely no guilt for her past bullying. A voice calls out her title, interrupting her thoughts as a nobleman approaches. Markaldaria smiles smoothly, asking the Duchess if she is enjoying herself at the party. Sophia politely thanks him for the invitation, while he graciously replies that hosting her is an honor for his family. He leans in closer, commenting that Duke Bernard is a lucky man to have such a beautiful wife. With a bold gesture, he touches her chin, murmuring about how charming she is. The Marquis insists his compliment is genuine, trying to charm her with his intense gaze. He asks where her stunning dress was made, shifting the conversation to her attire. Sophia feigns ignorance, claiming she doesn't remember because her husband handled the merchant arrangements. The Marquis pauses, his expression calculating as he processes her apparent lack of knowledge. Sophia smiles inwardly, knowing he likely views her as an ignorant duchess for not checking the merchant's name. She agrees with his assumption with a smile, playing the part of the clueless wife perfectly. Seizing the opportunity, he invites her to visit his family's merchant company, promising items that will capture her heart. Sophia smiles pleasantly, but behind her mask, she is analyzing his unusual behavior. She finds it suspicious that a marquis would personally solicit a customer on a first meeting, noting that usually noblewomen recommend shops to each other. Recalling Alan's warning to be careful when people talk about money, she raises her guard immediately. As he speaks, Sophia realizes with sudden clarity that this entire interaction carries the distinct scent of money. She tests him by mentioning his popular shop on 9th Street, which she has heard about. He flatters her again, saying he is honored that she knows of his existing establishment. However, he quickly pivots, stating that the shop he truly wants her to visit is different. He reveals plans for a new store on 3rd Street, a glamorous district where nobles gather. He invites her to be the very first guest, noting that no noblewoman has stepped inside yet. Sophia realizes his true intent is to use her status as a walking billboard to promote his new venture. He escalates the pitch, suggesting they co-manage the store under her name so she can have her own shop in the noble district. Sophia narrows her eyes slightly, fully understanding the game he is playing. His calculating gaze confirms that he views her as nothing more than a convenient advertising prop. She realizes he intends to use her for insurance and dump the risk on her, assuming she is too clueless to notice the scam. Playing along, she cheerfully accepts the offer but stipulates that she will come with Lord Alan. She flashes a dazzling, innocent smile, waiting for his reaction to her condition. The Marquis's smile falters instantly as he realizes the complication of involving the Duke. He awkwardly asks her to come alone, but Sophia firmly refuses his request. He tries to salvage the situation by claiming they want to prepare special items just for her. Sophia notes his hesitation, confirming that having her sharp husband around would be inconvenient for his scheme. She deduces that he wants to use her name to mitigate his financial risk in the expensive district. He clearly plans to push any potential failure onto the soft-headed Duchess while keeping the profits. Gripping her glass, Sophia feels a surge of pride that she is better at spotting danger than she expected. She reiterates that she wants to discuss the co-management with Alan since she doesn't know business herself. She seals her defense by asking him to send a formal invitation letter to their home. The Marquis grimaces, realizing his attempt to manipulate her has completely failed. Defeated, he agrees to contact her once preparations are underway, though his enthusiasm is gone. Sophia knows he will never contact her, likely inventing an excuse that the business deal fell through. Right on cue, Alan appears at her side, calling her name softly. She turns to greet him, relieved to see her husband. Alan greets Marquis Altaria politely, thanking him for the invitation to the party. When Alan asks what they were discussing, Sophia dismisses it as mere small talk. Alan accepts her explanation but turns a sharp gaze toward the Marquis. The Duke stares down the other man, his silence speaking volumes. Marquis Altaria sweats nervously under Alan's intimidating scrutiny. Sophia explains that the Marquis complimented her dress, but she couldn't tell him the merchant's name. Alan offers to send the merchant's details later, effectively challenging the Marquis. The Marquis hastily declines, saying he will look into it himself to avoid troubling them. Eager to escape, the Marquis excuses himself to take his leave. They exchange final formal pleasantries as the Marquis retreats. The Marquis walks away with a sour expression, his plan thoroughly thwarted. Before fully departing, he admits to Alan that the Duchess is beautiful and intelligent, confessing his envy. Sophia teases Alan about his ability to smile and flatter, which he acknowledges with a smirk. Pulling her close, Alan declares that having her come into his life was a great stroke of luck. Sophia blushes deeply, left speechless by his sudden and sincere affection. Marquis Alteria's expression shifts into a strained smile as he processes the subtle rejection. Turning to leave, the Marquis remarks with a hint of resignation that the Duke is a very lucky man. Bernard agrees, admitting that while he usually prides himself on his own merit, he was indeed lucky this time. The Marquis acknowledges the sentiment, noting it is exactly what he would expect from Duke Bernard. Excusing himself, the Marquis wishes them enjoyment for the remainder of the party before walking away. Alan notices Sophia's distraction and snaps her out of her daze, startling her. She quickly apologizes, stammering that she was just surprised by the sudden turn of events. Alan presses for clarification, asking exactly what surprised her so much. Internally, she reels from the shock that he publicly declared himself lucky simply because of her presence. His words calling her cute, beautiful, and a stroke of luck echo loudly in her mind. She reminds herself that their bond regarding Rebecca is separate and that they are strictly a contract couple, not lovers. Despite knowing their relationship is just for appearances, she admits that his recent words keep shaking her resolve. She feels confused, realizing that while she is an expert at spotting malice, she has no idea how to recognize genuine kindness. Misinterpreting her silence, Alan asks if the sheer number of guests at the party has overwhelmed her. When she weakly denies it, he assumes she is tired from the constant stream of people seeking audience with the Duchess. Taking charge, he immediately orders a subordinate to prepare a quiet place for her to rest. She tries to refuse, but he insists she hang in there just a little longer until the carriage is ready to take them home. Steeling herself, she vows internally to play her role as the perfect Duchess until the very end. Alan gazes at her with intensity, promising that he will be waiting for her to return. Blushing at his care, she quietly thanks him before heading to the rest area. A high-angle shot reveals the solitary balcony where Sophia has retreated to escape the crowd. Alone on the balcony, she worries that causing Alan trouble might jeopardize their contract. However, she clutches her chest, realizing that the happiness swelling within her is far stronger than her fear. A close-up captures the soft, reflective light in her eyes as she savors the moment. The peace is broken as a shadowed figure approaches her from behind. Assuming it is her husband, she turns around and calls out his name familiarly. A voice mocks her for calling Lord Alan without his proper honorifics. Natasha steps into the light with a sneer, commenting on Sophia's newfound boldness. Sophia freezes, whispering the name of the woman who haunts her. The narrative recalls the relentless mockery she endured no matter what action she took, whether she stumbled or walked straight. A clenched fist trembling reveals her past inability to understand why they went out of their way to mock her. Natasha breaks the silence on the balcony, sneering at Sophia's new life of luxury. A close-up reveals the malice in Natasha's eyes as she confronts her former peer. Sophia maintains her composure, formally addressing Lady Natasha and asking if she needs something. Natasha takes offense at the formal tone, accusing Sophia of acting superior. Sophia stands silently, refusing to be baited by the provocation. Internally, Natasha scoffs that Sophia hasn't changed at all despite her new title. Natasha's inner monologue rages about being superior and refusing to be lumped together with a mere count's daughter. She recalls Sophia's lack of magic talent and her origin from a poor noble house. Pointing an accusing finger, Natasha cruelly labels Sophia a defective reject. Sophia internally admits the grain of truth but finds the word defective rather harsh. She resolves to uphold her dignity as a duchess for the contract's sake without stooping to Natasha's level. Speaking aloud, Sophia advises Natasha to learn her place and addresses her by her full name. She warns that taking offense as a duchess could have dire consequences for House and Ninef's business. The threat strikes home, leaving Natasha visibly shaken and speechless. Recovering her voice, Natasha lets out a sharp, incredulous laugh. She accuses Sophia of merely throwing around borrowed power she didn't earn. Natasha insists that Sophia has no strength of her own to back up her threats. Screaming in frustration, She questions why a failure like Sophia was chosen by Duke Bernard. She declares herself the worthy one, citing her superior family lineage. Sophia's expression shifts as a realization suddenly dawns on her. She recalls rumors from their academy days about Natasha having a crush on someone. Connecting the dots, she wonders if the person Natasha liked was actually Alan. She realizes Natasha's hostility stems from resentment over being passed over for the marriage. A flashback reveals Alan admitting he chose Sophia partly because she resembles Rebecca. The memory continues with a vision of a young girl being introduced. A woman introduces her daughter, highlighting the striking resemblance. Sophia wonders if Alan would have chosen Natasha instead if she had possessed blonde hair. She recalls Alan's tender confession that her arrival in his life was a blessing. Blushing, she dismisses the thought, attributing her situation to sheer luck. She sternly reminds herself that the contract explicitly forbids her from loving Alan. Natasha yells that it must be a mistake, unable to fathom the Duke loving Sophia. Sophia lowers her gaze, the harsh words piercing her defense. She recalls the image of Rebecca and Alan, internally conceding that Natasha is right. A shadow crosses her face as she thinks that she is indeed not loved by him. Natasha watches her reaction with a satisfied, cruel smirk. She taunts Sophia, asking if she seduced the Duke with her body. Natasha sneers that Sophia always got plenty of attention from men at parties despite being poor. Sophia stammers in shock at the vulgar accusation. Natasha calls her pathetic for using her body, while Sophia tries to cut her off. Unimpressed by the protest, Natasha lets out a dismissive huff. A deep, imposing voice suddenly cuts through the air, calling Sophia's name. Sophia's eyes widen in sheer terror as she recognizes the voice. Natasha freezes, her expression shifting from arrogance to pure fear. Alan steps into the light, causing Sophia to stammer his name in surprise. He informs her the carriage is ready and asks how she is feeling. Sophia wonders how much he heard, quickly assuring him she is all right. Natasha trembles violently, stuttering as she addresses the Duke. Alan ignores her greeting, his face a mask of cold, suppressed fury. Natasha shivers uncontrollably under his terrifying gaze. He coldly confirms her identity as Lady Natasha of House Aninif. She manages to confirm her identity, terrified by his demeanor. Alan acknowledges the confirmation with a chillingly brief response. He calmly declares that her entire family line will soon vanish from the kingdom. Natasha lets out a small, terrified squeak at the pronouncement of doom. Alan expresses pity for Count Aninif having a daughter who directs such vile abuse at a duchess. He promises she will regret her savagery as he prepares to leave. Alan tells Sophia to come with him, leaving her stunned by his ruthlessness. Sophia intervenes, asking him to wait and suggesting his punishment is too harsh. Alan pauses, looking down at his wife with an unreadable expression. He asks if she truly believes the punishment is excessive. Sophia argues that while the insults were inexcusable, destroying an entire house is too extreme. Alan looks at her, considering her plea for mercy. He asks with genuine curiosity if she feels no anger towards Natasha. Sophia admits she is angry, but not enough to wish for total destruction. Alan stares at her silently, weighing her compassion against his rage. He relents, agreeing to handle the matter differently out of respect for her wishes. Sophia smiles and thanks him, while Natasha stands frozen in the background. Alan declares he will only crush half their business, ensuring the consequences match the offense. Natasha collapses in relief and terror, profusely apologizing and begging for mercy. Alan addresses her by name again as she pleads on the ground. He scolds her for begging him instead of apologizing to the person she actually insulted. He looks down on her with disgust, declaring her truly beyond saving. Natasha looks up, dumbfounded by his disdain. Alan reveals that he received love letters from many ladies during his bride search. Natasha reacts with shock as she realizes he knows about her letter. He explains he had his butler dispose of them and only report the senders' names. He recalls her claim that she was more suited to be Duchess than Sophia. He begins to address the absurdity of her belief that he would ever choose her. He states with absolute finality that choosing her would never happen even if the world ended. Natasha is left shattered by the brutal rejection. Alan guides Sophia away, leaving the devastated woman behind. Sophia glances back, her expression conflicted. Alone on the balcony, Natasha covers her face and sobs, asking why this happened. A narrative flashback takes us to Sophia's days at the Magic Academy. Sophia observes the other noble girls, unable to understand their behavior. She walks away from them, thinking that all she ever wanted was to be left alone. A close-up of her sad eyes reveals her wish for peace as laughter echoes in the background. The flashback shows Natasha and her friends laughing as they pass by the isolated Sophia. Flashback to their academy days, a young Natasha watches Sophia walk away and silently admires her beautiful red hair. Back in the present, Natasha covers her face with trembling hands and sobs in utter despair. She thinks to herself that if things had gone differently, her fate wouldn't have ended in such ruin. A memory surfaces of a time she looked at Sophia with a blush, captivated by how gentle she was. The narrative reveals that the Magic Academy was a toxic environment where weakness was preyed upon. Students constantly judged each other based on rank and talent, sneering at even the smallest differences. To survive, most students lowered their heads and tried to make themselves invisible to avoid becoming targets. In a flashback scene, a clumsy Natasha drops her belongings in the hallway with a startled cry. While other students mock her, Natasha cowers on the floor until Sophia stops beside her. Instead of ignoring her, Sophia bends down and picks up the dropped pen. With a warm, genuine smile, Sophia hands the item back to the stunned girl. Natasha stares up in disbelief, her eyes widening behind her glasses at the unexpected act of kindness. Sophia's expression turns serious as she quietly advises Natasha not to get involved with her to avoid being targeted. As Sophia turns to leave, Natasha instinctively calls out for her to wait. Natasha is left staring at Sophia's retreating back, feeling a strange pull towards her. She looks down at the item she was handed and reads the name written on it. The name, Sophia Ongrid, is clearly scrawled on the paper, burning itself into Natasha's memory. A gasp escapes her lips as she realizes the identity of the girl who showed her kindness. The scene shifts to the past marriage interviews, where Alan instructs his butler to call in the next candidate. The butler announces Lady Sophia Ongrid, and Alan invites her in with a look of intrigue. A narrative card establishes a scene change to a dinner gathering at the Duke's estate. Alan bluntly proposes a contract marriage for the sake of Rebecca, leaving Sophia speechless. Sophia freezes in shock, overwhelmed by how sudden and direct the proposal is. Oblivious to the tension, little Rebecca sits nearby with an innocent expression. Sophia tries to process the reality of her new contract marriage while Rebecca cheers happily. Alan drops another bombshell by walking in with a pillow and announcing that they will sleep together starting tonight. The narrative pauses for a silent moment of contemplation. Alan notices Sophia's distress and asks if she is all right, startling her out of her thoughts. She quickly composes herself, claiming she is just a little tired but otherwise fine. He accepts her explanation, suggesting she get plenty of rest since there is nothing scheduled for tomorrow. Sophia agrees and thanks him, though a heavy silence lingers between them. A wide shot shows the couple entering their carriage, the distance between them palpable. The carriage wheels begin to turn with a rattle, signaling their departure from the venue. Inside the carriage, an awkward silence hangs heavy as neither speaks. Alan breaks the silence, his expression serious as he prepares to ask a question. He prefaces his query by admitting it might be rude, but he needs to know. Sophia is surprised by his hesitation, noting internally that it is rare for him to be so cautious. A close-up of Alan's eyes reveals a mix of curiosity and concern. He asks bluntly if dropping out of the Magic Academy or being unable to use magic is truly so shameful. A flashback shows Natasha mocking Sophia with a cruel laugh, emphasizing the stigma she faced. Sophia's eyes widen in surprise at the directness of his question. She recalls her past, where even the smallest difference led to severe bullying and social ostracization. She explains that Alan never seemed bothered by her lack of magic, which she mistook for kindness at the time. In reality, she realizes he simply never understood why it would be considered an insult in the first place. Sophia passionately argues that a person's value shouldn't be defined by their magical skill or lack thereof. Alan agrees, stating that he believes magic ability has nothing to do with a person's worth or charm. He acknowledges that Natasha is just one of those people who cannot see past such superficial traits. However, he points out that not everyone in the world shares her narrow-minded view. He reasons that if Natasha had any sense, she wouldn't have insulted a duchess so openly. Sophia concedes that his assessment is harsh but accurate. She reflects on how Natasha has always insulted her, perhaps to reassure herself of her own superiority. Alan condemns such behavior as the act of a fool, dismissing Natasha's actions completely. He agrees with Sophia's assessment bluntly, validating her feelings. Despite his support, Sophia still feels the sting of Natasha's earlier words about her being a failure. Natasha's taunt about Sophia being chosen only for luck and her resemblance to Rebecca echoes in her mind. She clutches her dress, internally admitting that her selection was indeed just a stroke of luck. Alan notices her distress again and asks what is wrong. She dismisses it as nothing, but internally rationalizes Natasha's resentment as natural given the circumstances. Alan interrupts her thoughts, firmly stating that he won't tolerate her being insulted. Sophia insists that her change in status was merely a matter of luck, not merit. Alan stares at her intensely, his expression unreadable but focused. A heavy silence fills the carriage again as Sophia waits for his response. She confesses that she really needed to say this to him right now, even if she shouldn't have. She admits that back then, she would have married just about anyone to escape her situation. Her hand trembles as she prepares to confess her deeper feelings. She places her hand over his, admitting she also considers herself lucky to have chosen him. She reveals that hearing him say she was a blessing at the party truly moved her. She blushes, confessing that at the time, she thought it was just polite flattery. Alan looks at her with a soft, surprised expression. He explains that since she came, Rebecca has started expressing her thoughts and smiling more. Sophia smiles warmly, genuinely happy to hear about Rebecca's growth. She tries to deflect the praise to Rebecca's efforts, but Alan insists it is due to her influence. He argues that without her, he wouldn't be as involved with Rebecca as he is now. Sophia stammers, overwhelmed by his sincere appreciation. He pauses, searching for the right words to express his feelings. He looks away shyly, admitting something difficult for him to say. Taking her hands in his, he confesses that he has felt a deep fondness for her. Sophia's eyes widen in shock, her breath catching in her throat at the confession. He admits that meals with other ladies before her were painfully unpleasant. Sophia asks if that is really true, surprised by his vulnerability. He reveals that dining with her was calming and comfortable, unlike his past experiences. He adds that even their conversations didn't wear him out, which was a relief. A close-up shows his gentle expression as he recalls their time together. Sophia smiles brightly, stating that his words make her very happy. She realizes that because the contract forbade love, she never tried to win his favor artificially. She concludes that not trying to make him like her is precisely why things were different this time. Alan pauses, recalling something else she said before, wondering if she remembers it too. He reminds her of her statement that they could become a family, his voice soft with hope. A close-up shows his gentle gaze, filled with sincerity as he brings up the memory. Sophia looks at him, surprised by his sudden vulnerability and the weight of his words. The scene shifts to the dark exterior of the castle as they continue their conversation. He asks if she still believes that statement, his tone laced with a hint of insecurity. His hand gently covers hers, seeking connection and reassurance in the quiet moment. Sophia smiles brightly, assuring him without hesitation that of course she still believes it. Alan looks at her, moved by her unwavering positivity and acceptance. He smiles softly, a genuine blush dusting his cheeks as he expresses his happiness. Sophia stares at him, captivating by his rare, open display of emotion. A flashback shows a younger Sophia with a blonde-haired friend, both smiling in a field of flowers. Back in the carriage, Alan closes his eyes and confesses his strong wish for them to become a real family. He takes her hand in both of his, telling her how truly glad he is that she is the one he married. The sound of horse hooves clattering outside interrupts the tender moment. Sophia blushes furiously, stammering a shy thank you in response to his confession. As they pass the castle, she wonders internally if Alan has deep feelings about family too. Upon arrival, the servants greet them, welcoming the Duke back home. Alan greets Neo casually while Sophia smiles, happy to be back in their sanctuary. A close-up shows their hands still clasped together as they exit the carriage. Alan helps her down with gentlemanly grace, their bond visibly stronger than before. Sophia looks up at him with adoration, her heart fluttering at his attentiveness. She starts to ask him something but hesitates, unsure if she should voice her thoughts. Alan notices her hesitation and encourages her with a warm, open smile. Mustering her courage, she asks the question that has been burning in her mind. Does he like her? Immediately regretting it, she panics and tries to retract the question to avoid awkwardness. She quickly changes the subject, asking if her debut as a duchess can be considered a success. She declares that for now, She just needs a good rest to recharge from the events. The scene cuts to the next morning, where a massive pile of letters lands on her desk with a heavy thud. Rebecca and Sophia stare in shock at the mountain of correspondence before them. The maid apologizes for the intrusion but presents the overwhelming pile addressed solely to Sophia. Sophia's jaw drops as she stares at the sheer volume of letters, wondering what on earth is going on. Sophia realizes the mountain of letters are tea party invitations resulting from her successful debut as a duchess. She marvels that every sender is from a high-ranking noble family, confirming her new social standing. Overwhelmed by the volume, she sighs and decides she must carefully select which invitations to accept. A nearby maid exclaims in awe at the sheer number of letters piling up around her mistress. The servants praise Lady Sophia's popularity, noting how incredible it is to receive so many invitations. Sophia flinches dramatically, humorously blinded by the dazzling brightness of her high society prospects. Turning her attention to Rebecca, Sophia thanks the young girl for joining her amidst the chaos. She admits that having tea with Rebecca is far more enjoyable and healing than any stuffy noble gathering. Rebecca beams silently, her eyes sparkling with innocent affection at the compliment. Seeking pure healing, Sophia suggests they bake something together to relax and escape the paperwork. Inspiration strikes as she remembers a specific recipe and enthusiastically suggests they make it today. Rebecca's face lights up with excitement as she eagerly agrees to the baking plan. They visit the kitchen staff, who happily grant them permission to use the facilities once again. A list of ingredients appears, including cake flour, baking powder, sugar, an egg, and milk. Following the recipe, they sift the dry ingredients together into a bowl with rhythmic taps. Sophia mixes the batter after adding milk, enjoying the shared activity with a smiling Rebecca. They proceed to the third step, carefully shaping the dough into small rounds by hand. The chef handles the deep frying step, warning them to be careful as the oil bubbles. The finished donuts are revealed, decorated to look like adorable bunnies with cute faces. Sophia praises Rebecca's handiwork, telling her the bunny decoration is super cute. With the treats ready, Sophia suggests they enjoy them out in the garden for a picnic. Rebecca suddenly asks Sophia to wait a moment and dashes off before Sophia can respond. The little girl runs into the kitchen and spots the large head chef working at the counter. She nervously clutches her apron, hiding her hands behind her back as she approaches him. Fidgeting with hesitation, she tries to work up the courage to speak to the imposing man. Stammering, she finally manages to get the startled chef's attention. She bravely asks if he would be willing to share some extra ingredients for decorating the donuts. Sophia watches from the doorway, surprised and impressed by Rebecca's initiative. The kitchen staff gasp in pure shock at the young miss speaking up for herself. The servants whisper that it is the first time they have ever seen Rebecca speak to them on her own. Rebecca runs back to Sophia with a basket full of decorations, beaming that they gave her so much. Sophia looks at her with teary-eyed pride, acknowledging the big step she just took. The donuts are now fully decorated with flowers and faces, looking absolutely wonderful. Sophia gives full credit to Rebecca, saying the sweets are amazing because she helped make them. A maid arrives with a smile to announce that the tea is prepared. Rebecca stares intensely at the bunny donut, hesitating to take a bite of her creation. She admits sadly that the bunny is too cute and she feels bad about eating it. Sophia gently reasons that not eating it would be a waste of ingredients, which would make the bunny sadder. Rebecca stares at the treat, her resolve wavering as she considers the logic. A close-up of her eye reflects her internal conflict and eventual acceptance of the situation. She realizes that if they make them again, she will get to see the bunny again. Beaming with joy, she declares that she wants to bake with Sophia again in the future. Sophia agrees wholeheartedly, and they walk out to the garden together with their treats. An establishing shot shows the peaceful gazebo in the garden under a bright, cloud-filled sky. The two enjoy their tea and donuts in the serene outdoor setting, chatting happily. A voice calls out their names, interrupting their peaceful afternoon. Alan approaches the gazebo, looking at the pair with a gentle expression. Sophia greets him, surprised to see him back so early from his duties. Rebecca turns to him with a bright smile and welcomes him home. Alan pauses, visibly touched by the warmth of her greeting. He acknowledges her greeting softly, addressing her affectionately by name. His gaze falls upon the basket of bunny donuts in her hands with curiosity. Rebecca nervously offers the basket, asking if he would like to have one. Alan smiles gently and asks if he can have some too, validating her offer. Rebecca gasps, her eyes widening in sheer delight at his acceptance. She enthusiastically agrees, blushing with happiness as she offers the treat. A high-angle shot captures the three of them gathering in the gazebo as a family. Rebecca takes a big bite of her donut, savoring the taste of her hard work. The three enjoy a peaceful moment together, with Sophia smiling as Rebecca eats. Sophia gently wipes a crumb from Rebecca's face, completing the picture of a happy family. Alan brings the fork to his lips, tasting the treat with a contemplative expression. A close-up of his eye reveals a moment of genuine surprise at the flavor. He admits that it is indeed delicious, confirming his suspicions about their baking skills. A view from behind shows the family gathered in the peaceful gazebo, enjoying the afternoon break. Sophia beams with triumph, mentally celebrating that she knew he would like it. Rebecca excitedly chimes in, declaring that Lady Sophia's sweets are absolutely delicious. Sophia stands frozen, still processing the fact that Alan, who supposedly dislikes sweets, is enjoying them. She wonders internally why he actually enjoys them, suspecting he isn't just flattering them. Alan notes that he usually doesn't like sweets, but reiterates that the ones they make are truly good. He smiles softly, admitting that eating them makes him very happy, though he finds it embarrassing to say. Something snaps in Sophia's mind as she stares at his charming expression. Changing the subject, Alan asks if she has been receiving invitations to tea parties lately. Sophia sighs, admitting she has received more invitations than she can even keep track of. Alan advises her to accept a few, though he warns her that there will also be formal dinners to attend with him. Sophia turns pale, internally panicking at the thought of formal dinners, possibly even with the king. He assures her that things will be hectic for a few weeks, but she won't need to attend everything afterward. Sophia recalls relying entirely on Alan at the last party and feels a spark of determination. She pumps her fists, loudly declaring that he can leave it to her and she won't shame the ducal house. Alan looks at her with a gentle smile, telling her she doesn't need to try that hard to do just fine. Sophia thanks him but internally vows not to let her guard down and to keep working hard. Her expression softens into a melancholy gaze as a new thought crosses her mind. She realizes that with more Duchess duties coming up, her schedule will change. She calls out to Rebecca, her tone turning serious. She explains that she will be busier and might not be able to help Rebecca with her studies every day. Rebecca smiles brightly, assuring Sophia that she will be fine and will study properly on her own. Sophia smiles back, relieved but noting internally that studying wasn't exactly what she was worried about. She gently calls Rebecca's name again, prompting the girl to look up. Sophia points out that she noticed a pile of magic textbooks near Rebecca's pillow lately. Rebecca admits she is studying hard so she can ensure Lady Sophia never gets into danger again. Sophia looks at the young girl, her intuition confirmed. She reassures Rebecca that she was totally fine and there is no need to worry. A close-up of Rebecca's eyes shows them glistening with unshed tears. Rebecca insists it happened because she wasn't good enough and vows to prevent it from ever happening again. Sophia hugs her tightly, acknowledging her motivation but feeling a pang of sadness. She gently instructs Rebecca not to push herself too hard while she is away. A comfortable silence settles over the table as Alan watches the heartwarming interaction. Rebecca wipes her eyes and smiles, thanking Sophia and agreeing to her request. Sophia looks at the bright smile, thinking that as long as she has that, she can handle any social event. She fires herself up, mentally challenging any enemy, be it Natasha or the Marquis, to try and stop her. A narrative caption indicates a time skip of a few weeks later, showing the castle towers. The scene shifts to a bright, glass-enclosed gazebo where a tea party is taking place. A noblewoman calls out to the Duchess, drawing Sophia's attention. She leans in with a curious expression, signaling a shift in the conversation. The noblewoman asks point-blank what exactly Sophia likes about Duke Bernard. Sophia's face erupts in a massive blush, completely blindsided by the direct romantic question. Sophia struggles under the weight of invitations, prioritizing those with pre-existing ties to the Bernard family. She attends the tea parties alone, fulfilling her duties by greeting hosts and making polite conversation. While most attendees are pleasant, she encounters a jarring interruption that sours the mood. A noble confronts her, reminding her that he lent money to her family and expects a returned favor now. Sophia realizes he is attempting to leverage her marriage to extract money from the ducal house. The man sneers at her silence, mocking her status as a poor little count's daughter. His vulgar laughter fills the air while Sophia stares blankly, noting how nostalgic this bullying feels. She calmly acknowledges his position with a simple, detached response. Sophia clarifies that he is demanding payment and coolly states she will inform Duke Alan immediately. The man's arrogant expression instantly shatters into pure terror at the mention of the Duke. He frantically stammers that he was only speaking to the Ongrid daughter, not the Duke's wife. Sophia cuts him off, declaring that she is no longer a count's daughter but Duchess Bernard. She explains that soliciting her is soliciting the ducal house, which requires a direct report to Alan. Panic overtakes him as he begs her to forget the conversation entirely. He continues to plead desperately, terrified of the Duke finding out. Sophia hides a sharp, knowing smirk behind her fan as she watches him crumble. The man prostrates himself on the floor, wailing apologies to the absent Duke Bernard. Sophia gazes out the window, unfazed by the dramatic display behind her. She reflects that even her previous enemy, Marchialderia, had more refinement than these vulgar opportunists. Time passes, and the scene shifts to the imposing royal castle on the day of the banquet. The Duke and Duchess Bernard arrive together at the palace. They are formally welcomed to the castle by the king and queen. Sophia feels the pressure, realizing she is about to dine with the monarchs themselves. Alan greets the king with a stiff, formal bow, noting it has been a while. He begins to introduce Sophia but is cut off before he can finish his sentence. The king slaps Alan on the back, laughing and telling him to drop the stiff formalities. Sophia blinks in confusion at the king's unexpectedly casual demeanor. Alan tries to remain professional while the king chats him up like an old friend. The king immediately pivots to business, demanding Alan's thoughts on the port construction in his office. Alan resigns himself to being dragged away, asking only to finish his greetings first. Sophia watches her husband get steamrolled, agreeing with the queen's assessment of the situation. The king apologizes for the interruption, admitting it is embarrassing with the Duchess present. The elegant queen is formally introduced to the couple. Alan finally manages to introduce his wife, Sophia, to the royal pair. Sophia executes a polite greeting, thanking them for the invitation to the castle. The king beams at them, expressing his genuine happiness that they attended. He cheerfully tells them to make themselves at home in the palace. The queen offers to show Sophia around, as Sophia recalls seeing them at previous parties. Sophia notes internally that the royal couple seems completely different from her previous impressions. She is surprised to find them so kind and approachable in a private setting. Alan argues that the new trading port should be on the east side to protect sailors from dangerous currents. He debates the trade-off between skilled west side sailors and the high construction costs of the east side. The discussion delves deeper into the logistical pros and cons of the location. Sophia watches in amusement as they talk business in the middle of a dinner party. She observes that Alan actually looks like he is enjoying the debate. It becomes clear to her that Alan and the king share an unusually close bond. The queen apologizes, explaining that the king always gets excited when Duke Bernard visits. Sophia reassures her, admitting she enjoys seeing this unexpected side of her husband. The queen teases her about being newlyweds, causing Sophia to fluster and clarify her meaning. The queen smiles enigmatically and decides to change the subject. She asks Sophia directly what she likes most about Duke Bernard. Alan pauses his conversation to listen to her answer. He waits with a look of silent anticipation. His ear is practically twitching as he strains to hear her response. Sophia panics, wondering why she is being asked such a difficult question so suddenly. She worries that admitting affection might violate the terms of their contract marriage. Her thoughts spiral as she questions if she even feels love for Alan at all. The queen prompts her again, snapping Sophia out of her internal crisis. Sophia mentally screams that this is a disaster, unable to believe she froze before the queen. She stammers helplessly, trying to force an answer out of her mouth. A heavy silence descends upon the dinner table as Sophia struggles to find the words to answer the queen's question. The queen gasps in delight, her face flushing as she interprets Sophia's reaction as a profound confession. Sophia frantically stammers that Duke Bernard is simply quite the gentleman, trying desperately to walk back whatever impression she gave. She screams internally that her clumsy explanation was not what she meant to convey at all. Mortified, she realizes her attempt to clarify has only made the situation significantly worse. The queen smiles gently, noting that loving every part of someone can indeed be complicated. Turning to her husband, the queen admits she has things she hates about him too, but ultimately loves every bit of him, shocking the king. She looks back at Sophia with a knowing gaze, observing that the Duchess had that exact same look of love on her face. Sophia blinks in stunned silence, caught off guard by the queen's perceptiveness. The king awkwardly clears his throat and asks the queen to return to her seat, apologizing for the cheeky topic. The queen explains that she has always been viewed solely as the future queen since childhood. She smiles somewhat wistfully, admitting she has always wanted to have a casual chat about love like this. Sophia stares at the royal couple, touched by the queen's candid admission. Alan watches the exchange with a silent, unreadable expression on his face. Image. The night sky hangs over the castle spires as the evening draws to a close. Image. As they prepare to leave, the king apologizes for keeping them so late but insists he had a great time. He enthusiastically suggests that next time, they should discuss the Strait Bridge project. Alan bows respectfully, accepting the king's invitation for future discussions. The king adds that he would love to meet Miss Rebecca next time and urges them to visit again. Sophia curtsies politely, promising to return and thanking their majesties for the hospitality. The carriage wheels clatter against the cobblestones as the couple begins their journey home. Image. Inside the moving carriage, Alan breaks the silence to ask if Sophia enjoyed the evening. Sophia replies with a simple yes, the events of the dinner still lingering in her mind. She remarks that their majesties were wonderful people, and Alan agrees with a soft smile. Alan muses that next time, they should definitely bring Rebecca along. Sophia freezes as a sudden realization cuts through her post-party exhaustion. She frantically searches her memory, recalling that the king and queen have a son the same age as Rebecca. Alan confirms her suspicion with a nod, his expression calm despite her rising panic. Sophia clarifies that he is referring to the first prince of the kingdom. She buries her face in her hands, screaming internally as she remembers exactly who the first prince is. A terrifying vision of the future flashes through her mind, showing Rebecca's execution for treason after trying to poison the prince. As Alan smiles oblivious to her horror, Sophia connects the dots between his friendship with the king and Rebecca's fate. She realizes with dread that an engagement between Rebecca and the first prince has likely already been arranged. The scene shifts to the workplace of Natasha, an office clerk who knows Sophia well. Natasha cheerfully congratulates Sophia on her marriage, though Sophia's thanks are hesitant. She leans in to whisper a reminder that the contract part of the marriage must remain a secret. Natasha begins to tease Sophia, mocking her past crush on Lord Alan, with a playful grin. She makes a skeptical face, loudly asking if it really is a fake marriage considering Sophia's history. When Sophia denies having feelings, Natasha laughs and calls her a terrible liar. The two women sit together, their conversation continuing as their feet rest beneath the table. Sophia realizes that Rebecca met ruin in the prophetic dream because no one ever gave her love. She ponders whether Rebecca and the first prince truly had love from the start, as the dream alone is inconclusive. Starved for affection, Rebecca clung too tightly to the prince, and her behavior led to her execution. Sophia resolves to give Rebecca love now to change that outcome, realizing that an engagement alone does not guarantee happiness. Wanting to check the timeline, she asks Alan how old the first prince is right now. Alan confirms the prince is 12, making him 2 years older than Rebecca. Hesitantly, Sophia asks if there is any talk of an engagement between the first prince and Rebecca. Alan looks up sharply, his expression hardening at the sudden inquiry. He denies that anything like that has come up, causing Sophia to breathe a sigh of relief. When Alan asks why she brought it up, she deflects by saying she thought he and His Majesty looked close. She feigns ignorance, claiming she thought such an arrangement might have already been made. Alan agrees that since Rebecca is only 10, it is too soon to be talking about engagements. Pressing further, Sophia asks if he thinks the first prince would be a good match for Rebecca. She looks at him expectantly, waiting for his honest assessment of the boy's character. Alan stares back silently, gauging her intent behind the question. He admits that their majesties are wonderful people and assumes their son must be a fine young man as well. However, he trails off into silence, looking at Sophia with an unreadable expression. Sophia clutches her hands tightly, nervous about stating her true desire. She declares with a bright smile that she wants Rebecca to marry someone she truly falls in love with. Her wish is for Rebecca to find genuine happiness in a love marriage rather than a political one. She adds that she wants a partner who will love Rebecca even more than she does. The depth of her emotion is evident in her eyes as she imagines Rebecca's future. Alan looks surprised, touched by the sincerity of her maternal love. He acknowledges her wish with a nod, understanding her protective feelings. He promises to do everything he can to make that future a reality. Sophia thanks him warmly, relieved to have his support in this matter. Suddenly, a realization strikes her, causing her to gasp softly. Noticing her reaction, Alan asks if something is wrong. Sophia tries to dismiss it as nothing, but her hesitation only makes him more curious. She apologizes and admits she was surprised because she honestly didn't think he would agree. She looks at him tentatively, unsure how he will take her next words. She confesses that she thought he didn't believe in love marriages. She apologizes for the assumption, but Alan tells her it's fine while coughing awkwardly. He clarifies that he doesn't think love marriages are a bad thing in principle. Rather, he believes he is simply not suited for one himself. He recalls the love their majesties share, acknowledging it as something real. However, he notes that such love didn't exist in his own family, neither with his parents nor his brother. Sophia listens quietly as he opens up about the lack of affection in his upbringing. Because he believed he could never build love through marriage, he sought a contract partner instead. Sophia realizes that while his family influenced him, she always thought he just wanted to avoid annoying women. She recalls that Rebecca's biological parents were said to have a love marriage, noting the irony. Alan then muses that perhaps he actually is suited for a love marriage, catching Sophia completely off guard. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she processes what he just implied. She lets out a confused sound, unable to comprehend his sudden shift in perspective. Alan watches her reaction with a faint, amused smile. He remarks that he seems to be liked by his wife after all, teasing her about her feelings. Sophia freezes, her mind going blank at the direct accusation. She frantically stammers a denial, shouting that he has it all wrong. Flustered, she insists she didn't mean that, claiming the sudden question just confused her. Alan chuckles, noting that she usually handles things much more smoothly. He apologizes for teasing her, seeing how shaken she has become. Sophia demands to know if he understands that she seriously didn't mean it that way. She tells him to stop being defensive, though he claims to know already. Alan points out that her intense denial makes him think she must hate him. Panicked, Sophia blurts out that she doesn't hate him or anything like that. Alan smiles and says, "Yeah," accepting her accidental confession with satisfaction. Sophia sits there in confusion, wondering what just happened between them. Internally screaming that mixed signals are getting on her nerves, she reminds herself their contract forbids falling in love. Alan asks why she is glaring at him, clearly enjoying the situation. She turns away with a huff, insisting it is nothing while trying to hide her embarrassment. Sophia sits awkwardly beside Alan, radiating nervous energy while he remains perfectly composed. Alan breaks the tension by asking what her plans are for tomorrow's day off. He notes gently that it has been a while since she last had a break, his gaze softening with concern. Sophia explains that she wants to buy a gift for Rebecca since she has been stuck in tea parties lately, so she plans to go shopping. When Alan asks if she plans to go alone, she nods in confirmation, seeing no issue with the arrangement. Alan pauses for a moment, his expression unreadable as he seems to formulate a new plan in his mind. He abruptly announces that he also has the day off tomorrow, causing Sophia to freeze in sheer panic. She frantically insists that he doesn't need to come, arguing that he would stand out too much if he joined her. Alan calmly brushes off her protests, insisting it is no trouble at all while Sophia stammers in disbelief. He repeats firmly that it is not a problem, his tone leaving no room for further argument. Sophia stares at him in horror, her jaw dropping as she realizes she has lost this battle. As the scene shifts, Sophia wails that he is surely teasing her again, begging him not to come to no avail. The scene shifts to the exterior of the grand estate under the night sky, contrasting the peaceful atmosphere with Sophia's internal chaos. Inside, Rebecca sighs, complaining about a sudden craving for something sweet. She barges into the room and demands that her big sis make her some sweets immediately. She strikes a pose with a huff, looking proud and demanding in her nightgown. Muttering that she has plenty of money left from selling off Big Sis, she agrees to an internal plan. With a mischievous smile, she resolves to head into town the next day to check it out. In a romance novel Sophia is reading, a man asks his partner to accompany him to a dinner with his superior. The protagonist accepts nervously, worrying about whether she will be able to talk properly at such an event. The scene shows the couple laughing together, the atmosphere light and sunny as the awkwardness melts away. A panel displays the couple standing together with glasses, looking like a perfect, happy match. The man suggests they go walking together sometime, prompting the woman to blush and think how picturesque it is. The narrative shifts to the protagonist's inner desire to fall in love like in a story, craving a passion that sets her heart on fire. Suddenly, the female lead demands to break off her engagement, pleading desperately with her fiancé. The man is shocked that she wants to call off an engagement to the future king just for the sake of love. She admits it might seem foolish, but she insists she cannot let go of her wish, suggesting there are other worthy candidates. The prince asks if she can't just pretend, at least on the surface. He asks if her demand isn't a bit selfish, raising the tension between them. The heroine stares back silently, her resolve wavering under his intense gaze. The man looks back at her with a serious expression, weighing her words carefully. She argues that if the king and queen don't truly trust each other, they are just lying to the people. She declares that she doesn't want to cling to the title of queen that badly and is willing to betray everything for love. The man agrees with a simple, yeah, accepting her stance with surprising calmness. He looks down thoughtfully, the atmosphere shifting from confrontation to understanding. He hums to himself, seemingly intrigued by her conviction as he reaches a decision. He suddenly declares that she is the one he wants, causing the heroine to gasp in shock. However, he sets a condition. He will not cancel the engagement. He promises that instead of canceling it, he will make her dream come true within their union. The heroine swoons over her luck, while Sophia reads the scene with intense focus, wondering what just happened. Sophia clutches her face, mentally screaming about how much she loves shoujo manga. Her mind wanders, and she imagines being asked what she likes about Lord Alan, screaming everything internally. She quickly backpedals, stammering denials to her imaginary interrogator to compose herself. She clutches her chest, looking distressed by the realization of her own feelings. She spirals into a worried ramble, fearing that if a glorious love blooms in her own life, she won't know what to do. She imagines a romantic scenario with Alan, then shakes her head violently, trying to convince herself she is fine. Unbeknownst to her, Alan watches her wriggle with excitement from the side, noting with amusement that his wife is having fun. The carriage door rumbles open, signaling the start of their outing together. Sophia explains that because Alan tends to stand out, she was worried, so she decided to go into town with him today. Alan adjusts his glasses, explaining they are a magic tool that hinders facial recognition, though the effect weakens at close range. Realizing how much he usually stands out, Sophia notes the tool is handy and compliments him on how well the glasses suit him. Alan catches her gaze and teasingly asks why she is staring at his face so intently. Flustered, Sophia stammers that it is nothing, merely noting that he looks nice in glasses. A smirk plays on Alan's lips as he processes her compliment. He teases her further, suggesting that if she thinks he looks nice now, she must think that all the time. Sophia tries to regain her composure, admitting that objectively speaking, he is indeed handsome. Alan smiles with satisfaction, simply replying that he sees. Upon arriving at their destination, Sophia stammers for him to look, eager to head inside. As Alan steps out, Sophia blushes and mutters to herself that his charm is simply unfair. Alan extends a hand to her, softly calling her name to assist her descent. Sophia accepts his hand with a quiet, okay, her heart beating a little faster. Walking hand in hand, she realizes that without a social setting demanding it, there was no need for an escort, yet she took his hand without thinking. She blushes deeply, wondering if it is okay that this feels somewhat like a date. They enter a shop, and Alan confirms with a glance that it is a kitchenware store. Sophia explains she wants to buy a rabbit-shaped cookie cutter to make cookies with Rebecca next time. Alan looks around the shelves, humming thoughtfully as he browses. He holds up a selection of cutters, asking if these are what she was looking for. He calls her name, drawing her attention to the bundle in his hands. Faced with so many cute options, Sophia admits that it is difficult to choose just one. She wonders which shape Rebecca would prefer, debating between animals, stars, and hearts. Turning to him, she asks Alan which one he thinks is best. Alan looks at the collection and simply suggests she buy them all. Sophia hesitates, arguing that getting all of them might be a bit much, even if they can afford it. Alan counters that having many shapes just means she can make a lot of cookies. The simple logic makes Sophia laugh, imagining the abundance of cookies. Alan watches her laughter with a gentle, silent gaze. He turns to the clerk and declares he will take all of them. Sophia looks up in surprise as he finalizes the decision. When she tries to pay, Alan interrupts, insisting that he will buy them. Sophia protests that this is her purchase, but Alan silences her with a look. He declares that her purchase as his wife is also his purchase as her husband. The transaction completes, leaving Sophia flustered by his logic. Alan extends his hand to her once more, inviting her to continue their walk. Sophia hesitates, staring at his open palm. She points out again that since they aren't in a social setting, he doesn't have to escort her. She clarifies she just doesn't want to trouble him, to which Alan asks if she dislikes it. He states firmly that it is no trouble and he is doing it simply because he wants to. Sophia accepts his reasoning with a quiet, "I see." She reaches out and places her hand in his. Smiling, she agrees to take him up on his offer, and he affirms it. As they walk, Sophia reflects that while she wanted to be family, she didn't expect him to treat her this kindly as a wife. She warns herself to be careful not to get the wrong idea about his affection. The scene shifts to the exterior of a stylish clothing shop. They enter, and the staff immediately welcomes Duchess Bernard. The clerk thanks her for the previous purchase of clothes for herself and her daughter, saying they were wonderful. The clerk then notices the man beside her and asks if that is her butler. Sophia realizes the magic tool is working a little too well. Alan silently removes his glasses to reveal his identity. The staff panics upon recognizing Duke Bernard, but Alan tells them not to make a fuss and asks for a back room. Seated in the private room, Sophia asks to see designs for both women's and men's clothing, planning to order 3 outfits. Alan is confused and asks if she wears men's clothes, which she denies. He asks, "Then why?" prompting her to explain. Sophia smiles warmly at him. She reminds him that he had said he wanted a matching outfit too when she bought one with Rebecca. She reveals that today she planned to surprise him by ordering matching outfits for all 3 of them. Since they are here together, she suggests they choose the designs jointly. Alan is visibly moved by her thoughtfulness and softly replies, "I see." Alan smiles gently at Sophia, thanking her with a genuine warmth that catches her off guard. Sophia looks back at him, her face flushed and her expression one of stunned surprise at his tenderness. Alan touches his chest, remarking that this peaceful moment feels strangely like that dream he had mentioned before. His comment startles Sophia, causing her heart to pound as she wonders if that happy dream was a prophecy too. The shop clerk interrupts their moment, clasping his hands together and praising the Duchess's idea as wonderful. He beams enthusiastically, promising to create proper matching outfits for all 3 members of their family. Alan pauses, repeating the word family to himself with a contemplative, somewhat melancholy expression. Sophia prompts Alan to choose a design he likes, but he lazily suggests they could just buy them all to save the trouble. She playfully chides him, insisting that choosing together is half the fun, to which he chuckles. Alan gazes at her silently, his eyes softening behind his glasses as he watches her enjoy herself. He points to a simple suit design, asking if she prefers that one since he dislikes flashy decorations. Sophia giggles, noting that the understated style is very him. She points out another garment nearby, suggesting they could all wear it as a matching set. Alan looks at the item she selected, considering her suggestion with a thoughtful hum. He agrees with a simple nod, acknowledging that her choice is indeed true to their style. He smiles, expressing his gladness that they managed to find something good together. As they leave the shop, Alan stops and softly calls Sophia's name to get her attention. Sophia turns to him, a questioning look in her eyes as she waits for him to speak. He reaches out and gently takes her hand, stopping her in the middle of the street. He thanks her sincerely for remembering the promise they made to be a family. The weight of his gratitude hangs in the air as he acknowledges the significance of her actions. Sophia's eyes widen, touched by his seriousness regarding their agreement. She smiles brightly, assuring him that of course she remembers the promise they made. Alan looks at her with half-lidded eyes, simply saying "yeah" in a soft, affectionate tone. He kneels before her in the street, admitting that her gesture made him really happy. He kisses her hand with reverence, whispering his thanks against her skin. Sophia freezes in shock, her face heating up at the sudden public display of affection. Alan looks up and asks if she didn't like it, while Sophia stands paralyzed by embarrassment. When she stammers that she didn't dislike it, Alan smiles and says he is glad. Sophia yells at him, demanding he realize whose fault it is that she is so flustered, while he points out her bright red face. Alan points a finger at his own face, teasingly asking, "Mine?" He smirks confidently, admitting that he supposes it is indeed his fault. Sophia covers her face with her hands, overwhelmed by his teasing and her own racing heart. She glares at him through her fingers, muttering, "Why you?" as he chuckles at her reaction. Changing the subject, Alan asks where they should go next. Sophia hesitantly points down the street, still holding his hand tightly. She states that she wants to go to a sweets shop. Alan notes that she is pointing the wrong way for the sweets shop. He suggests they walk slowly until she calms down, guiding her in the correct direction. Walking beside him, Sophia realizes she can't even look at his face properly because her heartbeat is so loud. She touches her burning cheek, wondering despairingly if her heart rate will ever go down. They approach the door of their next destination, Alan reaching for the handle. A woman stands nearby and calls out, "Sis?" causing Sophia to gasp in surprise. Sophia freezes, letting out a confused sound as she turns to recognize the figure. Alan's expression instantly hardens into a cold glare behind his glasses. The woman, dressed in polka dots, smirks and says she knew it was them. She confirms her suspicion, addressing Sophia directly as "Sis." Sophia stares back in shock, whispering the name Berta as she recognizes her sister. The scene fades to black, the tension of the unexpected family reunion hanging in the air. Sophia remembers when Rebecca happily told her that the sweets she made were truly delicious. She recalls another memory of a young girl telling her the exact same thing while sharing a treat. The memory of her little sister, Berta, fades back to the present moment. Berta smirks, declaring she knew it was her sister all along. She greets Sophia casually, remarking that it has been a long time, causing Sophia to flinch. Sophia stares back, her face pale as she confirms quietly that it is indeed Berta. Berta asks what she is doing here, and Sophia replies simply that she is buying sweets. Berta laughs at the response, finding it amusing. She takes a bite of a cookie, agreeing that this is indeed a sweets shop. Berta asks mockingly if Sophia even has enough room in her house for luxury sweets like these. She reminds her sister that this is a high-end shop, implying Sophia doesn't belong. She boasts that her family has had plenty of money to spare ever since Sophia was sold to Duke Bernard. Alan adjusts his glasses, his expression darkening as he listens to the cruelty. Berta recalls that Sophia always made sweets for her and their mother at home, noting how rare it is for her to buy them. Sophia tries to explain that now she is a duchess, she can afford to buy them and make them for someone she loves. Berta chuckles darkly, repeating the phrase, "someone you love," with clear disdain. She sneers that it is no surprise, asking cruelly if the Duke doesn't actually love her. Sophia tries to hush her, reminding her that she isn't supposed to talk about the contract in public. Berta waves her off dismissively, claiming it is fine because no one is listening. A dark shadow falls over the conversation as Alan steps forward, his presence ominous. He asks in a low, dangerous voice, "Or what?" Berta continues her taunts, asking if being unloved bothers Sophia that much, while Sophia whispers for her not to worry. Sophia's internal monologue spirals, trying to convince herself that it's just a voice and she can't let Berta's words get to her again. She tells herself firmly that she mustn't cause a scene, reminding herself that Alan is right behind her. Suddenly, Berta has an epiphany, putting a finger to her chin in mock realization. She accuses Sophia of making sweets like she used to, desperately trying to be loved by someone. The word strikes Sophia hard, her eyes widening in pain as the insult lands. A flashback shows a young girl presenting a cake, hoping for approval but receiving only coldness. The memory reveals a young Berta staring blankly at the offering. The young Berta in the memory remarks coldly that the cake was just. Young Sophia asks eagerly if it is good, hopeful for a positive response. The memory shatters as the young Berta says it is just SOSO, crushing Sophia's spirit. In the present, Sophia fights back tears, the old wound reopening instantly. Alan steps between them, shielding Sophia from her sister's venomous words. He stares down at Berta with cold, unforgiving eyes, his patience completely gone. Sophia looks up at him, startled by his intervention and the intensity of his protective stance. Berta stammers, realizing for the first time who this man might be. A close-up shows the choker on Berta's neck, emphasizing her opulent but hollow appearance. Alan greets her icily, acknowledging that it has been a while. Berta switches to a fake, cheerful persona, asking if he is out shopping with her sister today. Alan retorts that simply accompanying his wife on a shopping trip makes him kind, dripping with sarcasm. Berta falters, unsure how to respond to his sharp tone. She tries to flatter him, saying he has always been a kind person, while nervously sweating. She disparages Sophia again, claiming her sister has no strong points and causes worry, hoping to align herself with the Duke. Alan ignores her, turning to Sophia with a gentle smile that contrasts sharply with his treatment of Berta. Berta continues to dig her grave, insisting that her sister is not good at talking. She suggests that talking to her would be much more fun, trying to steal his attention. She claims she can get along with any man instantly, preening with arrogance. She poses confidently, believing she has won the social interaction. Alan ignores her completely, focusing solely on his wife. Berta attempts one last dig, saying there is just one thing she needs to mention. She leans in, whispering conspiratorially as if sharing a secret. She laughs that Sophia's sweets are nothing compared to the ones in this shop. Sophia's expression crumbles, the insult about her cooking hitting her deepest insecurity. Silence falls over the group, heavy and suffocating. Sophia stands frozen, unable to defend herself against the barrage of insults. Alan's voice cuts through the silence like a blade, addressing Berta by her full title. He states that she has spoken far too rudely to the Duchess of Bernard. Berta stares blankly, not comprehending the gravity of his words. Sophia tries to intervene, stammering that Berta is her sister, but Alan stands firm, forcing Berta to apologize. Alan continues to stare down Berta, reminding her coldly that Sophia is the Duchess before she is Berta's sister. He emphasizes that they are in a public place, not her home, demanding respect for his wife. His voice drops dangerously low as he warns her to watch her tongue. Berta flinches, shrinking back as the weight of his authority crushes her arrogance. Her expression twists into a mix of fear and humiliation as she realizes her mistake. Berta stammers out an apology, finally bowing her head in submission to the Duke. Sophia watches silently, her expression pained as she sees her sister humbled so forcefully. Sophia snaps out of her daze, suggesting they leave the shop to escape the stifling atmosphere. Alan turns away from Berta without another word, guiding Sophia toward the exit. However, before they leave, he stops and declares he wants to make one thing perfectly clear. He states firmly that he thinks the sweets Sophia makes are the most delicious in the world. Sophia looks up at him, her eyes widening in shock at his unexpected praise. Alan adds cruelly to Berta that she will never get to taste them again, sealing her punishment. The flashback of young Sophia offering the cake resurfaces, but this time the memory is tainted by Berta's current malice. Tears well up in Berta's eyes as the finality of his rejection sinks in. Alan turns to the shop clerk and orders 2 of every sweet in the shop, commanding a servant be sent to collect them later. The clerk bows deeply, stammering his thanks, while Sophia looks on in amazement at Alan's decisiveness. Alan informs the clerk that they are heading back and instructs him to send someone to the previous clothing shop as well. The scene shifts to them boarding the carriage, leaving the scene of the confrontation behind. Inside the moving carriage, silence stretches between them until Alan closes the door. He breaks the silence, asking Sophia gently if she is all right. He apologizes for the trouble his relative caused, taking responsibility for the encounter. Sophia smiles weakly, dismissing it as fine and comparing it to being nipped by a stray dog. Alan chuckles at her analogy, noting that she has a unique way of seeing things. He falls silent, his gaze drifting away as he contemplates the events of the day. Sophia touches her cheek, her expression thoughtful and a little sad. She calls his name softly, drawing his attention back to her. She reaches out and places her hand over his, seeking a connection. Alan looks down at their joined hands, his expression softening with affection. Sophia asks him tentatively if he could listen to a bit of her past.